What is going on, RotoGrinders? We're back. NFL Pick 6 show. It is Super Wildcard Weekend. Going to be knocking out this one, and we're going to be back for next week as well. We'll take from there, but definitely, well, you know, the first 2 weeks, we're talking some NFL DFS, and it's Super Wildcard Weekend. We have a plethora of games. We're going to talk all 6 games. It's the Pick 6 show, so we're going to talk all 6 games. As usual, Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis, John Daigle, the hottest free agent in the business. Well, we're going to talk a little bit of money playing later on. I was just obviously we talk a little movies here as well, but just our chat. I won't say who said what, but somebody says I'm actually mad at Dean. I'm not going to lie. I want to fight Dean. Somebody else says that too. I did select our previous movie. We'll be discussing money playing later on in the show. You do want to stick around for that, but of course. NFL DFS, the main slate. Well, I should say there's a variety of slates. There's all sorts of slates on FanDuel, all sorts of slates on DK. You know, well, we're just going to break down each game individually. Obviously, Wednesday night, you guys know we record Wednesday night. There's a lot of injuries up in the air, a lot of questionable plays, and weather too. People are freaking out as far as weather. 3 games in a dome. 2 games are pretty dicey weather-wise, according to Kevin Roth. Obviously, this stuff can change. Weather is fluid. Another game, you know, a little bit of rain potentially, but again, we'll break all this down, do the best we can on a Wednesday. Rich, we made it. It's you know, the longest season. I guess that's Daigle's bit. We'll talk to him in a second. But what's up, Rich? How are things? Are we excited?
Yeah, I think Ezekiel Elliott said it best last week, and we didn't play in the game, but he was like, you know, I always wanted to play in a snow game, and I realized they suck. And hopefully we don't have that with the 2 games this week. I know one is just looks like it's going to be really cold. The other one looks like it could be like snow and windy. We'll see when we get there. I mean, just if the Steelers end up playing in a game where like no team can pass and they end up winning, like I'm done with the Steelers, dude. Like we just can't kill these guys.
That's what they want, right? That's the Steelers
exactly, dude. It's gonna happen. I can't believe it.
We're gonna see
I already see it playing out
Harris.
where like where there's like 6 completed passes further than 5 yards downfield in that game. Oh.
Get excited for sure. Daigle, what's up? We're going to be breaking down 6 games. Any general thoughts you have before we kind of dive in? Congratulations. We made it to the playoffs.
I've been trying to enjoy and relax during unemployment, but what that's become actually is the significant other thinking I have more free time. So instead I'm going and using Menards rebates and raking the yard and all sorts of other things with this extra time I have on my plate rather than playing Batman like a real man. So that's what's happening in my life right now. Other than that, I am intrigued by all the slates. Saturday only, we'll get to a couple leverage spots. Sunday, I think is going to be hot based on the projected game scripts. Monday even, we're looking at an upset. When I initially started researching every game, because it's the time of the year where you really have to step back and just ask yourself, like, the Eagles, an elite team, limping into the playoffs, did that matter at all? And honestly, I look around and I'm like, all these dogs are live. I really think so. So we'll get into the matchups and, you know, just the breakdowns here.
I feel the same way. I think we're going to have a good collection of games and also some nice totals, which is good to see. We'll get into it. But like the Green Bay Dallas game should be a lot of fun. Rams Detroit feels like potentially the most fun from a tournament perspective. But the very first game we're going to talk about it Saturday. I think it's like a 4:00 start or so. Cleveland at Houston. Houston is a home dog. They're getting 2.5 points. 44.5 is the total here. John, I'll let you kick us off here. Cleveland, Houston, whatever side you want to start on it. Go for it.
I think the microanalysis is pretty cut and dry. Like even from the Browns defensive side of the ball, they schemed the 4th most man coverage, the 2nd most cover 1, and CJ Stroud has been an entirely different quarterback against man coverage in particular this year. 53% completion rate, which is 22nd in the league, also 38th in EPA per play, and just a 3.4% touchdown rate compared to his 4.6% on the season. We also know like this matchup happened a couple weeks ago, albeit in a much easier spot with Case Keenum on the other side of the ball for half the game. And the Browns have been a pass-heavy team in the 5 starts Joe Flacco has made. But I don't think you have to even stretch it to play devil's advocate and see the edge here, because the Texans were initially 2.5-point favorites in that matchup 2 weeks ago until Case Keenum did get the nod and shifted the line entirely. This is also the first repeat matchup for Joe Flacco all year. And so they're definitely not catching Houston's defense, in my opinion, and the play calling off guard again. And the fact that it's still CJ Stroud fresh off of what was truly a playoff game, and he was incredible against it, against a 38-year-old who was unemployed until December. Like I want to go against the grain, the consensus here on both the 2-game and main slate and pivot to Houston's defenses at leverage, expecting 2 or 3 turnovers from Joe Flacco just chucking it deep, or simply fade Flacco altogether because I think he's going to be really popular on the overall slate.
Yeah, Rich, what if I told you like 3 months ago or even the start of the season that Joe Flacco is going to be a road favorite in the playoffs? Like, what you would have a lot of questions. Like, what happened? What was this season? That's what we're looking at against the Texans, no less, by the way, against Houston. Houston is hosting, a playoff game. Really, really wild. But yeah, what do you got? Your thoughts here as far as Flacco taking on the young gun there, Stroud?
Yeah, and not even like Flacco backdooring in, like Flacco scored multiple touchdowns in all 5 of his games. The only Browns quarterbacks that throw multiple touchdowns in 5 straight games are Baker Mayfield and Vinny Testaverde. He's the first quarterback in franchise history to throw for 300 yards in 4 straight games. He just was the first passer in 33 games to throw for 300 yards against the Jets in a game without Amari Cooper. It's been a good story, man. It's been a fun ride, and the Browns have kind of leaned on him. I mean, you look at they've been 5% pass rate over expectation with Joe Flacco, 11% pass rate over expectations on first down play calls. They really can't run the ball. Like, this is a team that for months has not run the football well, and they've kind of swerved into it. And it's been kind of fun to watch. It's hard not to root for it, right? Like, Flacco's been on this, and also guess what? Quarterbacks won the most road playoff games the wild card round in NFL history.
Is it Flacco?
It's Joe Flacco. So kind of fun here. I'm with Daigle from like an ownership perspective. Obviously in the Saturday slate, he's going to be really popular based on, the potential weather of the late game, how the first time Miami and Kansas City played out, just different things, and how everyone will chase what happened in the box score in this game between Flacco, Amari Cooper, a little bit of David Njoku. That was literally the stack I played against you guys that week. We won a bunch of money. So I'm curious to see if just like the gamers flock to that. Obviously, you look at the Browns. What happens with the Browns? I thought, like Daigle said, I was going to be like against the grain and be like kind of on the Texans, but they're still getting the majority of the public money, and people are still on the Texans. It actually went down a point today. It's like they're only 1.5 now, so people are getting to the Texans now, and potentially the spot where maybe Flacco has like some recoil. And the Browns just can't keep living on the turnovers that Flacco has. I mean, they've turned the ball over 12 times in his starts. It's tied for the most in the NFL, and we know historically in the playoffs, teams that have won the turnover battle, going back to 2002 in the NFL, expanded to 32 teams. Teams that have won the turnover battle in the playoffs have won 77% of the games. Teams that have won the turnover battle by 2 or more have a 95-18 record. So the Browns do need to clean up some stuff. The one thing that I keep coming back to, though, in this game is just the insane mismatch, though, that the Houston offensive line has against this Cleveland defensive front. I mean, it's just so glaring. I mean, you look at the games that Stroud has struggled. It's not necessarily even like a man coverage thing. I mean, the teams that he's played that are in the top 10 in pass defense this year, the Jets, the Ravens, the Saints, and the Panthers, just completely wrecked them in terms of pressure. I mean, and this Browns team pressured Case Keenum, that is, on 44% of his dropbacks in week 16. Like, it's just a huge, huge advantage the Browns have in this game against this offensive line that has just been a mishmash of parts the entire season. So I don't know, if we see Flacco definitely throw for 3 bills, and Kamari's not going for 265, but it is still, like, when you look at that offensive line versus defensive line matchup, I mean, it is really hard to say that that's just not a clean advantage for the Browns.
We have Jeffrey hanging out in the chat. Do you want to say what's up to those hanging out with us live on a Wednesday night? Kindly hit that like button, subscribe, do all those things. Help us keep the lights on. I do appreciate that. But Jeffrey's requesting flag plants from each of us at the end. I don't know if it means at the end of the whole show or the end of each game. I don't know if we have a flag plant in each game, but we'll kind of figure that out, I suppose.
I also remember last week, too, like Daigle said, it was like a pseudo playoff game for the Texans, and I don't think D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Sloak passed the test.
No, dude.
And we'll see if it ends up like maybe they use that to calibrate, because that game should not have been as close as it was. CJ Stroud was absolutely cooking in the first half of that game. They went run heavy. They punted from across the 50. They did not do the things that we want, like the head coaches that have optimal game planning want to do.
Yeah, John, you were saying it's interesting that the thought process of maybe playing Houston defense against Cleveland, that like just the way salary works, it appears Flacco is going to be popular, which is just, again, just sort of bizarre, but it also kind of makes sense the way he's been playing this year, the way they've been throwing this year. They're in a dome, which is beneficial as well. Favorite pass catcher for Cleveland, John? Well, I know, again, you're talking about, for tournaments, for deep tournaments, I suppose, running out that Houston defense, getting in higher in the field. But if you're at a roster, the Cleveland side, your favorite pass catcher, all things considered, is who?
And they were leaking to everyone in their secondary prior to last week when the Colts, surprisingly, shockingly, were having so much success on the ground that they didn't even really need to throw the ball. It meant you didn't have a good day, but it didn't matter. Even Zach Moss came off the bench and averaged 5 yards per pop because Shane Steichen's play calling on the run game was just so creative. But before that, remember, the Texans were just shutting down opposing running backs after their bye for only 3.1 yards per carry. So the fact that Rich already noted that the Browns can't run the ball, and we don't think the Texans will give it up in the running game. That's why we are looking through the air. And we do have 4 games that it was Amari Cooper and David Njoku on the field with Flacco, and it was Cooper who still led the team with a 23% target share. I would imagine David Njoku is probably going to be the most popular tight end on the entire slate, right?
I'm not sure. I ran optimizers with for the 6-game slate. I didn't want to run it for every single slate. You know what I mean? I just wanted to see what I can get as far as the big picture. And I know you talked about a pre-show where we're going to be playing all the different slates. We're playing the 3-gamer, we're playing the 6-gamer, the 5-gamer, and we're just going to pump the information out and have people figure it out, dispersed that way.
The 2-gamer might not be great to play, man.
The Saturday 2-gamer is what you're talking about.
Yeah, because I mean, just if you obviously have to play against like the weather factor in that game, but if the weather ends up being bad in that game and like literally it's just like everything is on Flacco and the Browns side, like it's just probably gonna be pretty disgusting.
Yeah, maybe Pacheco's like a really strong play. I suppose we'll get there soon enough. That's of course the Miami Kansas City game that there is some weather potentially lurking. We saw the total drop by what?
I guess it was similar to last week, right? Though, when you won money when it was like Texas, or no, that was 2 weeks ago. Now, so it was probably similar to the 2-gamer last week, where like Ravens Steelers was an expected shit show and ended up being, and then you had Colts Texans at night where everyone just wanted to play Nico Collins and CJ Stroud and Jonathan Taylor, and all those guys ended up hitting.
You never really know how it's going to go in those 2-gamers, and like there's always like a one separator is kind of comes out of nowhere. And we'll see if we can figure out who that person may or may not be. By the way, for what it's worth, in the 6-game slate, tight end wise, Dalton Schultz is the most popular on DK. That's what I'm seeing, at least on a Wednesday. And Njoku, the 3rd most popular tight end. Question for
it really just depends also if we get Noah Brown and Robert Woods back. Woods seems to be trending in the right direction. On Wednesday, Noah Brown's still a DNP, but we'll find out.
Is it me or does it feel like there's a lot of skill position players that are questionable, like more so than most times going into the playoffs? Like almost like every team has some situation.
Well, it happened, dude. We bagged on Dan Campbell last week, and he did it, man. He did it. At least it wasn't
they won the game.
Like that's a massive loss for that. We'll get to that game, but it happened. And the Eagles, obviously, AJ Brown. It's literally the first target of the game. He gets hurt on, and then Jalen Hurts gets hurt. It's like what an absolute disaster, man.
Yeah,
and I think that when Laporta got hurt, because I think it was like within a half hour, Andy Reid declared Travis Kelce wasn't playing. It was like literally like 30 minutes later. Like
screw your 16 yards. He needed 16 yards or whatever it was to get 1,000 yards. Like screw that, dude. And I think did Noah Gray play? I had him in some lineups, but he caught a football.
Noah Gray did play, but you wouldn't know it. That is correct.
I mean,
I saw him block a
couple
couple
times on defense, so like.
Yeah.
I did pivot to some Noah Gray. I'm like, oh, Noah Gray season. But like maybe he's too good to play also. I don't know. Did not show up in the box score, unfortunately. Rich, your favorite skill position player on both sides of the ball, Cleveland, Houston.
Oh man. I mean, it's tough to not just objectively say Cooper, not even for the game he had. It's just, He's been targeted on 29% of his routes from Flacco. Only 11.9% of his targets have been inaccurate from Flacco. He had a 15.5% inaccurate target rate from Deshaun Watson, 21.5% inaccurate target from PJ Walker, 26.3% inaccurate target rate from Dorian Thompson Robinson, which happened this year. He's also playing 82% of his snaps outside. That's like literally all we've done is flood like outside wide receivers against Houston. I mean, he's going to be really popular. So, like, you just got to get a little bit unique with it. And Njoku might end up a little bit of a trap. You look at it, he had the 6 for 144 and he had a touchdown in that game. Houston gives up a lot of targets to tight ends, so they're actually pretty good on a per target basis. That's why when you look at Njoku's game and he had 9 targets and just turned him into a modest game. I mean, he's going to need a touchdown, I think, because the Houston actually has been really good on a per target basis to tight ends. They just face a lot of targets to tight ends. So there could be a little bit of like maybe trap potential if you pay up for a guy like him. As on the Saturday slate, where if you just maybe try to jam in Travis Kelce, might just be the move to go to. But I mean, it's hard not to say Cooper, and I don't know. Nico Collins is still interesting to me. Obviously, it is the Browns defense. They have been awesome against wide receiver ones this year. But he literally is all they've got, right? Like the ball has to run. Like this offense has to run through Nico Collins. And I do think he is good enough to win, in this matchup. So he's still interesting if people want to get scared about him.
For Cooper, there's also like the sneaky available target share because it doesn't seem like Cedric Tillman's going to go. And Tillman, like for what it's worth, in those 4 games that Cooper and Njoku played, still had 20 targets from Joe Flacco. We've seen this year that if you are important to the team and you suffered a concussion the week prior, you don't have a concussion the following week. Cedric Tillman probably doesn't qualify as that.
Yeah, don't mean to laugh at that, obviously, but it is kind of ridiculous. Is Schultz, if Schultz ends up being kind of chalky, John, is that good chalk, Dalton Schultz? Or is it, fragile?
I don't think so personally, especially again, if we get Woods and or Noah Brown back in this game, because a lot like the Ravens, just like a defense, we don't target tight ends against. The Browns even are still bottom 4 in fantasy points allowed per game to opposing tight ends. They do score touchdowns against them. They've scored 7 touchdowns this season, but overall, again, the target share, if we're going to disperse it across the board, Dalton Schultz is not it for me, especially if he's chalk.
Anybody have a take as far as, I know we really don't run the running game here, right? But it is a 6-game slate or a 4-game slate or a 2-game slate or whatever, depending on what slate you're playing. And I see Richie in chat asking about Ford. If you had to pick one, Rich, you got to pick one of Singletary, Ford, Hunt. Who would you roll with, all things considered?
Well, I think that there's an argument to be made for at least 2 of the 3. I mean, I think Ford is interesting to a degree because you look at Houston, although they've been excellent against the run, and oh my goodness, the Browns could not run on these guys the first time they played either. I forget what the actual, line was of what they had. I think they had like 30 some touches for like 70 yards this game. Both guys did score, but where Houston has been the most vulnerable is, they are 18th in receiving points allowed per game to running backs. And that's kind of where Ford has gotten there when he has gotten there for fantasy, when he hasn't just got like the long run, which he hasn't had one, I don't think, since the Colts game. But Ford is his 5 receiving touchdowns. Only Christian McCaffrey had more. So like maybe there's an element there to where you play that as like an angle. And that's also like cross leverage on like Amari Cooper or like Njoku, right? If he catches a touchdown. And then Devin Singletary just literally is getting the workload for Houston. So like as a byproduct has to be playing. This Browns defense has been kind of all or nothing against the run. I mean, they are number 1 in yards per contact allowed per carry to running backs. They're also number 32 in yards allowed after contact per carry. They will give up some chunk gains, but they have only allowed 5 running backs that go over 100 yards this season. One was last week, which doesn't count. So really only 4.
It really reminds me of like a less sexier spot that Kyron Williams is in for Devin Singletary because he's going to get so many touches. And if the Texans do get there, it's also probably an under game. So it really seems like leverage would come through Singletary.
All right. We got anything else, or shall we move on and talk about the Dolphins and the Chiefs? Moving on. 44.5 is a total. Again, this is drop about 3 points or so. KC, 4-point favorites versus the Dolphins. I will go ahead and read what Roth said. This is Kevin Roth, chief meteorologist here at RotoGrinders. Obviously, this will get updated. But what's out there right now, he has his color coding too. Orange. Orange is a scary. Like red is the worst, but orange can be kind of scary. Absolutely frigid. Actual temp should be around 10 degrees at kickoff, closer to 0 by endgame. A 10 to 15 mile per hour wind will put feels like temperatures well below 0 degrees. Temperatures generally are not a big concern to the game, but extreme cold is impactful, especially when adding in some wind to go along with it. Rich, I never like being like the freak out over weather guy. I think we typically, as a general rule, we probably overreact too much. But, this is something. But also, if it's a 2-game slate, whatever you're supposed to do. These are also 2 offenses that are really good, have great weapons in the passing game. Well, I probably shouldn't say that. Theoretically, good weapons for Kansas City. Certainly Miami does. But how much do you care about this? Assuming nothing changes, this is basically the forecast. Are you concerned? Do you care? Are people going to overreact? Your thoughts on it?
I'm just going to wait until Saturday, to be honest. I'm not going to – on Wednesday night, I'm going to go crazy. I reviewed the game as such, as a baseline level, and it added some notes about the weather. But I don't think until Saturday I'm going to, go crazy, right? We don't have to. We don't have to at this point. Correct. So I'm not going to – on Wednesday night, I'm not a meteorologist, so I'm going to see what happens. I'm more curious of anyways, just these 2 teams in general, where they are. I mean, we've seen Miami all year, right? They faced – they played 6 games against teams with a winning record this year, fewest in the NFL. 1-5 in those games. The Chiefs have played 7 games against teams with a winning record. They went 3-4. They have faced just 5 playoff teams who went 1-4 in those games. The lone win against these Miami Dolphins on a neutral site in Germany. And just the state of where the Dolphins are right now, everything has literally run against them these last 3 weeks. I mean, absolutely stone cold, just couldn't run colder for them. And literally could not have run colder if this is true coming into Saturday night. I mean, the offensive line was already really hurting. We'll see. Obviously, Mike McDaniel said they're optimistic they get Raheem Mostert and Jalen Waddle back. I assume that those guys do play in some capacity. They lost Bradley Chubb in Week 16. They lost 2 more. They lost Xavier Howard, too, in that game. They lost 2 more starters last weekend in Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel. I mean, they are just bleeding out. They are just down bodies. And this is the team that already had a healthier version, lost to the Chiefs team. So it's really kind of hard to get on board. I do think when you look at this, the Chiefs do have some matchups that do favor them, especially with the injuries. Because when you remove Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips from the board, I mean, the Miami Dolphins go from a top 8 pressure rate team to a bottom 4 pressure rate team. And when Miami hasn't gotten any pressure on the quarterback, they've been a completely different defense. I mean, they have a lot of league high completion rate when they haven't pressured the quarterback, 22nd in yards or pass attempt, 25th in touchdown rate. When they didn't pressure Josh Allen on Sunday night, he absolutely cooked them that. I mean, I know they had a punt return to come back in the game, but the Bills squandered a bunch of opportunities to really kind of flood the Dolphins in that game. And then they didn't do anything in the second half of that game. So I do think there's some opportunities, especially when you lose a guy like Jerome Baker, who was their best coverage linebacker. You've got guys like Duke Riley on the field. We've seen what Eli Apple's been on the field. Congrats. You got that free interception last week, but I mean, they're just missing so many people. It is a really tough spot for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, it's kind of if Kansas City was a little bit better this year, it looked because Kansas City's been down bad all season long. It's no secret, and their offense has been uninspiring. But it feels like it should be 7 or 8 or 9. But obviously KC as far as the line. But that it also sort of speaks to how Kansas City's been pretty inept offensively as well. Do you have a similar read there, John? This Dolphin, I'm not handing their defense guy, but it feels like they've lost way too many pieces on this Miami defensive end.
I would love to have a different spin, but that's pretty much where I'm at too. I don't know how they can throw. They were signing Justin Houston, Emmanuel Ogbah, the list goes on. 5 different veterans over 30 years old who don't even know the scheme. And Vic Fangio is supposed to coach them up in 7 days to get ready for a trip to Kansas City in frigid weather. I just don't know how they do it. I do think the Chiefs are still interesting though, because it's as you mentioned, Dean, going overweight on Isaiah Pacheco. This has become Pacheco's offense for better or worse, with Patrick Mahomes being like the world's best game manager of all time and extending the plays when he needs to. And they're really good at running the ball. They're still top 10 first off and points and yards per drive. So they're still an above average offense, although they're not fun to watch. It's not sexy at all because they're not winning the ways they won previously in their last 2 Super Bowls. But even their offensive line is creating, because it's a offensive line stat, the 6th most yards per carry before contact. And then Pacheco, he's just running hard, honestly, is all it is, but they're leaning on him. His last 4 full starts after the bye, he's averaged 21.5 touches. He's handled 89% of the team's running back touches overall. And that stretch, only Christian McCaffrey has run for more first downs. So it just seems like another spot, although Travis Kelce has an interesting matchup if you can get there with the salary. It does seem like a spot where Pacheco just stands out in this entire slate, 2-game and the main one.
Do you have a preference among, like, Rice is the clear number one? And I'd love to have your thoughts on Rice, but like, how deep are we digging? Are we throwing a dart in MVS, a Watson, large field stuff? Like, theoretically, one of these guys can get loose and just one big catch, one long catch from MVS. If you can hold the ball, that can help you get there, and it can help you get some of the big spend tickets that, are really going to put up the big numbers. But yeah. And the other part of it, like you said, John, how much do they need it? It's possible they just got to control the ball on the ground, and we'll see. But you have a take when it comes to the pass catchers outside of Kelce, John?
You could probably get to Watson as their second receiver, even though you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a couple targets, and one will probably be a 34-yard catch. You need to hope he gets the second one and maybe score a touchdown. But given just the salary restraints we have at cheapies, then Watson's, you can go there. It's fine. I still think Travis Kelce, as I mentioned, is interesting, if only because the Dolphins were already just getting smoked by tight ends, but now all these injuries have stacked up immensely, and it's just one after the other. Jake Ferguson had 45 yards, but then after that, both Isaiah Likely had that 2-touchdown game. Charlie Kolar came in and had a touchdown. Last week, both Dalton and Caden Dawson-Knox scored double-digit fantasy points. They're just really struggling, like Rich said, in that middle of the field, because that's where Jerome Baker was lining up, and they just don't have anyone to come off the bench and cover these guys. So if there was ever a game, and I'm not even saying it's the game, I'm just saying, like, for leverage, if there's ever a game where you're spending up for Travis Kelce, the matchup, at least on paper, makes sense.
Dude, there was a play. They had Melvin Ingram guarding Dalton Kincaid in a play last week.
It's been ugly, man. Again, no one even knows who, like, Andrew Van Ginkel is, but he was arguably just
as the man. Yeah,
he's got great hair. He's on the all-hair team.
He was maybe just as important as Bradley Chubb. Like, he was having an amazing season, and I just cannot believe they've lost so many people these last 3 weeks. Could not have run worse.
Rich, who or how do the Chiefs offensively, how they take advantage of this Miami, the beat-up defense here of the Dolphins, whatever they're rolling out there? Pacheco seems like the most obvious route, which is always weird when Mahomes is your quarterback to say that, but that's kind of where I'm at. I wouldn't not play Mahomes if I'm running out a bunch of lineups, but I think Pacheco is my favorite piece. Your thoughts as far as the Kansas City offense against whatever Miami's rolling out there?
Yeah, I don't mind Pacheco from just the usage stance. We've seen, with Jerick McKinnon off the field. I mean, the 3 full games he's played, he's had 87%, 88%, and 100% of the backfield touches. So we're going to get that usage from him. Miami's injuries, though, are not really to their primary run stoppers, which does kind of help them out. Obviously you've got, the 2 awesome defensive tackles they got, and, they did lose Phillips and Chubb, but those are their edge rushers. So they have stopped the run still. So, I think it does help them in, that short passing game. The Chiefs, that is, helps them in that short passing game. The guys like Kelce and Rashee Rice that runs a lot of the underneath stuff because he's not necessarily running all the way downfield. He's got a lot of yak. And their target tree's concentrated. The past 6 weeks, it's Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, the 2 guys over 20%, and Isaiah Pacheco. They're throwing to 3 guys, and then it's just the rotation of dudes after that. So it's a very concentrated offense. I think we can just play through it in that capacity. With Mahomes, you get a little bit of rushing too as well. Maybe he becomes a little bit interesting, but I do think that they'll have some success still with the short passing game. And then on the other side, I think you look at it as, if you're running it back, Devin Achane is still the guy. I think even with Raheem Mostert coming back, I think Mostert's going to be a guy that plays in high leverage spots. He's going to have one of these high utilization rates, right? When he plays snaps, it's probably going to be to touch the football. They're probably not going to waste a lot of snaps on him in pass protection and stuff. So Achane probably stands out as a guy, maybe, if they can establish the run first and get out early, because the Chiefs still have one kind of clear weakness, and it's defending the run. He kind of stands out as kind of the explosive guy. It sounds really crazy on a team with Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill definitely looks banged up. Like every target Tyreek Hill, like the past month, looks like he's about to go to the sideline. Also, he's facing a Chiefs team that's allowed the fewest yards per game to opposing wide receiver ones. The most yards a wide receiver one has had against them this season is 73 yards. Tyreek himself only had 62 yards when these teams played. Our guy Joe Gibbs too has pointed out that the referee assignment for this game is the team, the group of referees that call the least amount of defensive pass interference in the NFL this season. So good news for L'Jarius Sneed, who has the most penalties in the NFL. Maybe he can get away with a couple in this.
That's a deep cut there from Sharp there. All right, that's interesting.
So that'll be interesting. But I mean, they've given up 200-yard receiving games all year, the Kansas City Chiefs, and one was Josh Palmer, and I'm trying to go back to who the other one was. It was another secondary. It was Christian Kirk. So, I mean, they just haven't given up a lot of production to opposing wide receiver ones, including Tyreek himself. So I think Achane is my favorite kind of bring back, because he can catch short passes and he can kind of get explosive runs for you in the run game.
And they've kind of babied him all year. I don't say babied him, but they haven't fully unleashed him, fully pushed him. He doesn't typically get 20 plus touches. Maybe it's a must-win game. Maybe he gets a little bit more, maybe, especially if Mostert's kind of banged up. If wide receiver 2's got a better chance to get there, if Waddle's good to go, maybe he's the better spot when you consider dollar for dollar.
Yeah, we just don't know. Like the dudes like Waddle, and when we get to the Eagles game, we're going to be flying blind. Like we have no idea how healthy any of those guys are.
It is weird. There all the people that cover the NFL, and I guess as we get close in, we'll get more information. We're just kind of guessing here.
Do you think Waddle practices at all this week?
I mean, if anything, it'll be limited, right? But I wouldn't think anything. He wouldn't have a full practice. I wouldn't imagine.
Yeah, so we're just like going in the dark, like on him. Like he could play, 25 snaps, just like you said, high leverage spots. Like we don't know.
And then you can't even look at the rest of the receiving core and say, well, if Waddle doesn't go, we can. Oh well, this guy's terrible. This guy's terrible, and I know they're all cheap, but they're all awful. Like the Dolphins have no depth as far as their receivers. Chosen. I don't know who we're going to be looking at. Wilson, if anything, but nothing you feel great about. John, what do you got as far as the Dolphins offense?
Rich has pretty much explained it already. I may even be open again just to try to do something different, since I do think Mostert will play in important spots. He's definitely not going to outsnap Achane in this game, but he can go back to that role of at least being like the goal line back and the important carries inside the red zone. So if that's the case, I'm open to playing him. I'm open to playing both with Mahomes stacks. I'm still trying to sort through it, especially if I'm trying to fade Flacco in the 2-game slate.
I just wanted to say, I thought it was a cool thing last week with Chris Jones, the sack for $1 million. You never see that scenario in the NFL. Like you talk about bonuses and all that, but is there a cooler thing to do outside of winning the Super Bowl? Like you sack that dude, you get $1 million. Like it's right there. He's a pile of money. You sack that pile of money, and it made me think of LT in any given Sunday. You guys remember any given Sunday? No,
yeah.
The whole team. An injury.
The whole team was dancing too. Everyone was in on it.
Yeah, that's when I don't know if you probably could have bet that. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, but I didn't look at it later in the week. But what were the odds on them getting a sack? Do you know? Any of you guys know what that was? I thought it was worth exploring because they were going to do their best. He was just attacking until
Jadeveon and Clowney got $500K, I believe, and they nearly had to call a timeout just to get him off the field. He was dancing so much.
Is there a cooler feeling in sports? Honestly, walk-off homers are cool, but sack that dude, you get $1 million. You never see that, but okay. I thought it was a fun little moment.
Also, is the sack dance the most underrated celebration in sports? Everyone talks what do you do on touchdowns, but I think the big dudes, there's some creative sack dances out there. I think the sack dance might be the best celebratory event in the NFL. Definitely not this every defensive player and the guys on the bench run to the other sideline or run to the other end. We got to
take a picture or row a canoe.
We got a moratorium.
With this. Yeah,
we got a moratorium mix. It's wait, this many guys were even on the field. How is everyone down here?
So I say sack dance, and I want the chat to answer this. I want the people to tell us also. Let us know in the comment section. I say sack dance. Who's the first person you think of? I think of that big dude for the Packers that would shake his belly. Many years ago, was it Abaji? No. What was the guy's name?
It was. Was it
No, he would like gyrate. Yeah, what was the guy? He would gyrate. Like he would like
Raji? What was the name? I know what you're talking about.
He had a Gwen Stefani like low cut shirt for some reason, and you'd see his belly coming out from under it.
Yeah, it was BJ Raji. Yeah,
that's who it was. Yeah. That's the first guy I think of. Who's the first guy you think of?
I guess I'm showing my age, even though Rich is older than me. But I always think of, it's not even fat guy, honestly. But I just think the Jared Allen shovel dig was always like the one who originated like sack dances.
Oh, the rodeo, the rope.
Yeah. Oh, the rodeo. Yeah.
Chris Dolan, I think, had one too. Speaking of Vikings,
who was the Chiefs pass rusher? Not Derek Thomas. Was it Neil Smith? Was that his name? That did the baseball bat? Did the home run every time he got sacked?
I feel like a lot of people do that now, but you're saying he was the originator of that?
Oh yeah, he was like the old school originator. Like he played with Derek Thomas. I think I got the name wrong, but
I'm not sure.
It is Neil something for sure. I do know that.
All right. Well,
it is Neil Smith. I had it right. It is Neil Smith.
All right.
That was good.
Okay.
The sack dance though.
It's a good call. It is underrated. And I would dance too if I sacked a dude. That's worth. We got Sean in chat confirming it was Neil Smith with the old sack dance. That is the Saturday slate. Do we want to plant a flag on somebody on Saturday? Let's do that. We'll do one for each day. John, plant a flag. Somebody in the Saturday games we talked about: Kansas City, Miami, Cleveland, Houston. Who's the one player that's going to break the slate?
I don't know about break the slate, but I do like getting leverage with Texas defense. So I will do the first ever boring flag plant defense. How about that?
11 players. 11 plus.
All 11.
What do you got, Rich?
I'll say Travis Kelce. We've chased the ghost a lot. I'll just go back one more time. Listen, what's another weekend of me losing money on Travis Kelce?
Yeah, well, we might have a couple more if they beat Miami. I think they're going to beat
the
Miami.
5 game or the 6 game, the main slate. He's going to be there for the taking. I can't imagine a lot of people get to him because they're going to be trying to jam in so many Rams and Cowboys games players.
Oh yeah, the wide receivers on Sunday are good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I like Kelce in the main's really, really fun.
Very first game on Sunday, Pittsburgh Steelers at Buffalo. Buffalo is a minus 10-point favorite. 36.5 is the total. And again, this is another game that is expected to have some rough weather. It's really quick. It just says cold, windy, potentially some snow. Temperatures will be in the 20s with sustained winds around 15 miles per hour, gusts around 30. Rich, you kind of teased this. It's like, man, Pittsburgh just wants Najee to run the ball 30 times. If they want to have like 11-minute drives, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, and then maybe Warren will come in and he'll get 4 yards. And this is one of the worst teams to make the playoffs, right? I'm sure it's worse. I shouldn't say that, but it feels like
right
really
now
they
currently, and I know weather has factored into some of this. They currently have the lowest implied team total of any playoff team since 2002.
13.25. That's what I'm seeing at RotoGrinders. Is that more or less what you're looking at?
Yep.
13-ish. Yeah. You want to sell me any? If you want to tell that story. That's what they're going to try to do, right? They're going to try to establish.
Yeah, I mean, if you think the weather is that this bad, then you look at that. You go to DraftKings or FanDuel, your book of choice, and you see those Najee Harris 14.5 carries, and you say, all right, I don't care how many yards he gets on them. They're going to keep trying. Because Jalen Warren had 2 fumbles in the rain last week. The Steelers are 31st in the NFL in dropback rate when leading at any point. And in the second half, they're dead last in dropback rates. Like if they're if any time they can run the football and are allowed to run the football, they're going to try, no matter if they're good at it or bad at it. The Mason Rudolph thing just feels so unsustainable. I mean, obviously he's had 2 great matchups against teams that we have targeted basically the whole back half of the year against the Bengals and Seahawks, and then had this punt game last week. He's thrown 3 touchdowns. They're 86 yards, 66 yards, and 71 yards. Aaron Paul memed that shit. Like he just can't keep getting away with it. I mean, and the Bills have legitimately been awesome. Like they are first in the NFL in sack differential. Like because they put this thing together with duct tape and bubble gum all year. They've had a slew of injuries, and this defense has just kept putting out good performance after good performance. But they're number 1 in sack differential. They're number 1 in sack differential at home. The end of the season, 3rd in passing points allowed per game, 8th in yards per pass attempt allowed. So, I mean, it is a totally different test than what Mason Rudolph and this offense and how they've operated the past 3 weeks, because the Bills are also excellent against the run. They started off the season kind of bad against the run in the first 6 weeks, and they've corrected those issues because since the opening 6 weeks, they've allowed 3.9 yards per carry to running backs. That's the 11th in the NFL. They've allowed 5 rushing touchdowns to running backs. That's 5th in the NFL. 2.6 yards after contact per carry. That's 6th in the NFL. And they haven't allowed a running back to go over 80 yards in a game against them since week 6. So this is a totally different dynamic than how the Steelers have operated. We'll see if, Mother Nature gets in the way of this one or not.
The Dolphins were going to get there last week. I still had no idea why they took their foot off the gas and got away from the running back carries, because they had 17 running back carries in the first half, and they averaged 6 yards per carry, and 5 of them went for 10-yard gains. And then they only had 3 running back carries in the second half, despite leading by only a touchdown. It was a really weird game plan.
John, you want to sell us anybody as far as Pittsburgh? Rudolph, Harris, Pickens, Johnson. I think Harris is probably like the most logical one, large field stuff. If you want to throw darts at Pickens and Johnson, I imagine they're not going to get much ownership at all. Nobody's going to play Rudolph, and that gets weird that nobody's going to play a quarterback on very small slates, depending on what slate you're playing. But I don't really see the path. Like, I don't see how it happens. Maybe a 70-yard slant or something. He's like a missed tackle, and that's how you get there. I don't know.
Is even one of those going to be enough though on the Sunday slate? When
right.
We're talking,
like if you want to get some leverage, you could go to Jordan Love, even who has shown us a ceiling, but I don't think Mason Rudolph in this game can get there. Having said that, is there an advantage because the Steelers basically played this same game just last week and the same weather? If it holds up, maybe a little bit. And the fact Najee Harris even got involved in the passing game finally last week without Matt Canada for 5 catches, a little bit was due in part to the 2 fumbles Jaylen Warren had. But yeah, I think Najee Harris, at least from a touch-based stance, is interesting because I'm still worried about the Bills' offense. That everyone's citing the win-loss record, but it's like when I say Tyrod Taylor was the best Giants quarterback. It's all relative. But the Bills' offense has been worse under Joe Brady. Like now, in that time, in this 7-game stretch, they're 11th in explosive pass rate, 17th in yards per play, and just 9th in scoring drive percentage. And so if the Steelers are hanging around, like, is it enough for them to upset this game? I'm genuinely worried. I'm a little bit worried about the Bills in this one.
Eventually, one of these 7 seeds is going to win. It's been a complete flop so far. Well, not for the NFL. Yeah. They're printing money.
They're making money.
They're printing money. So it has been. But the 7 seeds are 0-6, and not one of them has been a touchdown dog or better. They've all these games have been 7 or more points. So like we haven't needed it, but eventually one of these teams will win, right? Like and be like they'll pull off all these upsets.
The TJ Watt injury is a lot like how you mentioned Reeves about the Dolphins losing their edge rushers, but not their run stuffers. Like TJ Watt's important for every aspect of defense. I get it, but also like he's most important because he's rushing Josh Allen, and that's not who the Bills' offense is. Like they only became that last week because they had to, but they've still been a run-heavy team under Brady. So I don't think the Watt absence is as crucial as a lot of people make it out to be in this spot.
John, continue that thought as far as Buffalo's offense. I think Allen's kind of interesting. I think it's interesting to play as like an a la carte piece, just like by himself. Maybe that's a little bit different. And he's running a fair bit. Yeah. He can do like the tush push stuff at the goal line as well. And I don't know if you need to attach a receiver to him. We've talked a lot in this show about how Diggs has been mostly disappointing. We don't know about Gabe Davis. He got injured last game. Obviously, we'll see. We know his variance 0 to 100. You never really know what you're going to get with Gabe, but I'm considering Allen is just like kind of by himself. Don't mind Cook either, of course, in that backfield. But if you're playing some Bills here, John, offensively, how would you build your stacks or maybe just one-offs, however you want to attack it?
In this kind of environment where you don't think he grows through the air and is a rushing quarterback, I guess I can see it. But the issue is that he's really living off of this, like the Jalen Hurts aspect, when if you take away these bunny touchdowns, what becomes of this player? And so I'm a little concerned. He does have at least 8 carries in all but one of his last 6 games. But even then, just to rattle off 8 touchdowns in his last 6 contests, like, and 8 rushing touchdowns, I should say. That's wild. And a lot of it does come because they brought along the tush push under Brady. So to me, that seems like it can't happen forever. But again, in this game where we don't think they're going to go through the air, if you want to play them, sure, because I imagine Goff and Stafford are going to acquire a lot of ownership on this one.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned with the Bills offense, just the old Milton Berle game, just enough to win. I don't know how much Pittsburgh's going to push back offensively. We'll see. But Rich, your thoughts as far as the Bills offensively?
I think it just depends on how much the weather impacts the Bills' aggressiveness, right? I mean, they haven't run it well with James Cook since the Cowboys game. They've run it better with Josh Allen. Because, TJ Watt, listen, 7th in the NFL in pressures, 1st in quarterback hits, 1st in sacks. When the Steelers have pressured the opposing quarterback, they've allowed a 45% completion rate. They're 7th in quarterback rating. When they have not pressured the opposing quarterback, 67% completion rate, 20th in yards per pass attempt, 19th in passing touchdowns allowed, 10th in quarterback rating. And Allen has been a different quarterback when he's been pressured or not this season. So there is a path where it's hugely impactful. Watt did not play in this game last year when they played, and they only pressured Allen on 15% of his dropbacks in that massive boat race that they had. That was like the Gabe Davis caught like a 99-yard touchdown or some shit in that game. And
then he shot the boards in the offseason and became like a 3rd-round pick or something like that.
But when Allen was kept clean in a game, 10 yards per pass attempt. I definitely don't think, especially with the back end pieces of the Steelers have, there's an opportunity for the Bills, especially Khalil Shakur. I think if we don't get Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakur definitely stands out. Obviously, he got the big bump last week, but that's where Steelers have been kind of the most vulnerable, right, to these slot receivers. They're 30th in yards per target to slot receivers. So Shakir is like you said, maybe like a one-off or a cheap stacking partner becomes interesting. Maybe Kincaid, who they finally started throwing the ball to downfield. He's at downfield targets the past 2 weeks. It took 17 weeks for this to happen. But he's got 4 targets on 20 yards or more downfield. He had 3 before week 17. He had 4 in the past 2 games. Who knew, right?
If you told me they schemed their offense optimally in this game, I would be all over the Bills. I am very skeptical, though, based on how they want to play.
Yeah, I think Dean's layout of doing what's enough to win feels like the path here.
Which means none of us win.
Yeah, you want optimal stuff, and I don't know how much they actually have to do in this game, and what's Pittsburgh's offense going to do. It feels like this could be like a 17-6 kind of game, like a 17-3 kind of game. You never really know. They play the games that the Steelers are paid to, and things happen. Lots of variance, but that's kind of where I'm at.
The Steelers thing. They'll hang around here.
Do you like Pittsburgh plus 10?
Well, the only two 7 seeds have covered since they've expanded, and both came against the Bills.
Well, there you go. All right, that's something. It was not just the line, but the line, not just the total. The total dropped, and Buffalo expanded as far as becoming a bigger favorite, which I think is weird because the offensive setup, this is what Pittsburgh wants. They want the weather to be as miserable as possible. The more miserable, the more the skill is nullified, right? Am I wrong to say that? I feel like you want it to be an absolute disaster out there. So whatever skill level you have, it's diminished to some degree. But
I took the Steelers plus 10 since this is a betting show.
There you go. Yeah. I want to hear that. I was thinking of Allen rushing yards, but my book has it 4 points higher, 4 yards higher than everywhere else I'm seeing it. And I was too stubborn to bet.
What about the actual attempts though?
I did not look into that. Is that something we should talk about? What is it? 7,
because
8,
it's
9?
usually been 7.5, and it's been like Daigle said, he's been getting there every week. Last week it was 7.5, and I think he had 15.
So kneel downs are technically, if you're thinking ahead, the kneel downs are rushing attempts, right?
I think just from a raw attempt perspective, especially if it's snowy, he's going to get 8 rushing attempps.
Oh yeah,
I like it. I think that's a pretty good. I've not looked into that one.
And you don't care how many yards he gets on him. You just don't care.
No. Maybe you can box it too. You can. I don't know if you're allowed to pair them or not. Some books won't let you do that because there's some correlation. But anyways, anything else as far as Pittsburgh and Buffalo, or shall we move on? I believe we're
let's get to the fun games. These 3 games. You got to fight through these 3 games. But I guess Browns Texans definitely has a clear path to being fun. But
plus, Chiefs Dolphins, I'm not expecting anything, but I'm being locked in because I have so many questions about the Chiefs. I need to see something. Give me something.
Did want to mention first, Sim Labs. If you guys are not aware, if you're a combo member at RotoGrinders, an NFL Premium subscriber, you have access to NFL Sim Labs. But well, what else is here? What just dropped? NBA. It's NBA season. We're talking NBA every single day here on this channel. If you guys are not aware, use Sim Labs to generate DFS lineups through the power of simulation. It combines data from every aspect of the slate to turn out lineups that match your preferences. Just a few clicks, you have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. Now, again, including NBA Sim Labs, it is free right now while it is in beta mode. I believe it's going to be free up until, well, last I heard was possibly Sunday. Do not hold that to me. But just be aware, at some point that's going to go away as far as free. What you want to test out the product, do so. Test out NBA Sim Labs here at RotoGrinders, free for the next several days. Also wanted to mention, speaking of RG and RG Premium, you can get that for free. How do you do that? You get yourself a month free of RotoGrinders Premium if you just win our listener league. Win the listener league, get yourself a month free. Shout out to Weasel 19. We lost to a Weasel last week. Weasel 19 took it down. Shout out to you. By the way, Fog Ducker, we want to get you some premium, so contact us. You took it down in week 17, but Weasel 19 has already been juiced up. Good luck going forward. Rich, by the way, did win amongst us. We all participate as well. The link will be in the description. The link will be in the chat as well if you want to participate. For what it's worth, it is the three gamer on DK that it automatically generates, and that's what they gave us to play with going forward. So this week, and I believe, I think this is the last. We'll see. We'll talk about that as far as how much longer we'll be doing the listener league. This might be it, though. Might be your last chance. Okay. The last game, not the last game, the next game we're talking about for Sunday is Green Bay and Dallas. This is where the fun starts, Rich. 50.5 is the total. The Packers are 7.5 point dogs here to the Cowboys. I think they're kind of, sort of, somewhat live. I know John kind of hinted at it. You don't? Okay. So
I think this is the biggest blowout on the slate.
Woo! Okay, let's hear it. I want a hot take. Give it to me.
Well, I mean, look at the quarterbacks the Packers have faced. They haven't the best quarterback they face is Kirk Cousins.
When was that? Week 2 or something?
Yeah. They faced one QB1 in fantasy points per game this season. It was Kirk Cousins, and that was a game without Justin Jefferson. Before he left, was averaging 9 yards per pass attempt and 2 touchdowns. Like, they have faced no good quarterbacks at all over the course of the season. I mean, I granted Patrick Mahomes is a good real life quarterback, but like they've faced like nobody playing great quarterback play this season at the level of Dak Prescott is playing this season. We're getting the Cowboys at home, and the Packers are another one of these teams. Like, if they don't rush the quarterback, like, they're dead. They're dead. They're absolutely drawing dead. We saw it 3 weeks ago when Baker Mayfield shredded them, when Bryce Young was able to get them. I mean, we've got this Cowboys defense that can generate pressure, which has been Jordan Love's like still primary bugaboo, even on this hot run he's had. We've got Cowboys at home where they've won 6 games by 20 or more points. I mean, granted, it might come back and eat this, like, whatever, you clip it, whatever. I think the Cowboys absolutely flood the Packers in this game.
BJ Raji is not walking through that door. Is that what you're saying defensively for the Packers?
He might. They may.
They might need him. All right, John. Well, I mean, I'm easily swayed, and Rich has me swayed. It's like, oh, you know what? That was a lot of good points. So maybe I haven't bet anything.
I mean, I have a bunch of more like in the worksheet. I wrote up like a bunch of detailed stats about like how the Packers, like, if they don't get the Dak, like, they're just going to get cooked. They're going to get absolutely fried in this game. If they don't have like an absurd pressure rate, like, they're going to get absolutely just roasted.
Point, counterpoint, John. Tell us why the Packers might hang around.
How volatile Love has been. We've seen in the second half of the season, their stats about the pass blocking have increased. They've kept him cleaner, but also it's really just comes down to the play calling with Matt LaFleur, because really since week 9 on, they've just asked him to get rid of the ball quickly and design things closer to him. 46% of his passes he's gotten rid of in 2.5 seconds. And in those, he's averaging 10 yards per attempt, 10 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And so if he is under pressure, you would think that's the game plan. But like Rich said, if they're flooded anyways, it's basically going to take away a lot of the options here, because the Cowboys defense has done similar to what James Cook has done and being opposite since they played one another. And the Cowboys have had some good matchups too, even a couple weeks ago to play the Lions. Like, they contained both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery in that game throughout. And so whether A.J. Dillon plays or not, we saw Aaron Jones finally get passing game usage with 5 targets, 5 catches last week, and he is getting the touches overall, so maybe he gets there just because of the touches. But honestly, you're looking at probably piecing together Packers receivers opposite the Cowboys if you think the Cowboys dunk on them. And if that's the case, we're really just in a waiting game. This spot is actually so interesting for the main slate too, because no one's late swapping like on a 6-game slate. And like, if we could take down the Packers wide receivers, because we just don't know who we're getting right now. And if that's the case, like, we could just wait it out. I don't know how the hell Bo Melton hid on their practice squad all season long, because he seems pretty good. But even after Romeo Doubs left last week, it was Melton who had a team-high 23% target share. He played in 3 wide sets as well, because Jaden Reed still only comes on as the team's 3rd receiver. Jaden Reed still gets there because he's awesome at football. But it was really Bo Melton, Dontavian Wicks, and the Reed behind them with a route on 78% of dropback. So I'm kind of just waiting it out to see what happens with Dobbs and Christian Watson. It's a lot like Rich alluded to last week, in that the Packers don't ever play their players returning from injury full time. We even got that last week with Luke Musgrave as well, who was basically non-existent. And Tucker Kraft still was out there for every single snap, despite Musgrave being available. So even if Watson plays, I think we may actually just get reduced ownership. And like, that'll benefit us, as opposed to like still wanting to roster him. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is just waiting and seeing and using those spots for Packers receivers in particular.
I love that call on the Watson. It just feels like it's just not going to happen. He hasn't played in a month and a half or so, or something like that. But week 13 is when we last saw him. Going into the season, he was like, the number 1 most hyped guy on this roster. But they're really young and they seem to be really talented. Keep an eye on the injuries as far as Dobbs, as far as Watson. But I think that's a great read as far as even if Watson comes back, be afraid, because the price is $4,500 for Watson. Oh, that seems interesting. I don't know. I don't trust it.
And
John,
I just don't know if
as
one of these cheap guys gets you there with a touchdown on this particular slate. Like this Sunday slate, there's wide receivers on the Sunday slate that could have 30, man. Like there's multiple of these guys could have 30.
Are we thinking 4 and 2, like four receivers, 2 running backs?
I think that it's a definite 4 wide receiver slate, especially on DraftKings, and I think probably on FanDuel too, to be honest. Because are you going to want to play Aaron Jones, or do either of the guys in the first game we talked about have the upside? I guess you have to play 2 running backs. So like, you're probably, maybe that's where you say like, all right, maybe I'll try Najee out, or you throw a dart on Tony Pollard. Or, you're talking about the 6th game. I'm talking about the Sunday.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Continue.
Yeah. But like, Pollard, no one's wanted to play him. You got Aaron Jones in a game where there were 7-point road dogs. Like Daigle said, since everyone thought like the James Cook game, everyone was like, oh, well, they're just going to get run on the rest of the year. They've been awesome. And they faced good run teams. Like they faced the Dolphins after that. Then they faced the Lions, and they held those teams in check. Like they rallied. And then in the late game, like we'll talk about some of the guys there that could be kind of trap spots, like Kyron Williams maybe. So like, yeah, I feel like it is a 4 wide receiver, probably even on FanDuel.
For Sunday, I would just argue you probably need one of the cheap guys, unless you see a path to where we can get up to everyone without playing one of these cheap Packers receivers.
Your favorite cheap receiver, Rich, on Green Bay? I know Wednesday it's tough and we're not even sure who's playing, but the best you can do with that is like, the best ideal setup, let's say they're all playing, or even if Watson doesn't play, you can still give an answer.
I mean, if I haven't looked at the salaries to see what Reed is, but if I had to do a close to punt, I would say Wicks. He's
4.8 on DK.
What's that?
Wicks is 4.8, Dobbs is 5.4, Watson 4.5. Melton 3.3 for what it's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I still would lean Wicks just in a vacuum. Obviously, if you need the salary, throw whatever dart you need to throw. I'm trying to think if there's another guy. What's Josh Reynolds?
Josh Reynolds is 3.8.
Oh, yeah, I'd much rather play Josh Reynolds then. When we get to there, I guess we can talk about it. And Demarcus Robinson, what's he?
Demarcus, I think he's in the 3.6. Okay. He's actually 3.6.
Oh yeah. Those 2 guys I think are way more appealing to me than chasing any of the Packers receivers.
I'd be open to Tucker Kraft too. I think I'd run it back if I just need to get down at tight end on Sunday. Main slate, like Rich said, I think Travis Kelce fitting him in is really interesting, but cheapy little Tucker Kraft, whose salary never moves, I'd be interested in.
3.3. How much are you prioritizing Lamb here, Rich? It sounds like you like this Dallas offense. Is Lamb just your favorite receiver on the weekend?
I mean,
Favorite
it's
receiver in
tough.
this game,
I mean,
like.
I think you can make a case for Lamb, Amon-Ra, and your Rams, decision of choice to make between Kupp and Puka, which is so damn hard every week. But I mean, yeah, dude, how can we not? Like since week 6, he leads the NFL in targets per game, receptions per game, receiving yards per game, receiving touchdowns. He scored a touchdown in 9 straight games. The top 2 coverages that Green Bay runs, cover 1 and cover 3. He has the most receiving yards in the NFL against cover 1, 7th most against cover 3. He moves inside and out. The Packers are getting smoked by slot receivers, so he can get away from Jair Alexander if you're scared of Jair Alexander. I know it doesn't really matter, but when these teams played last year, he also had 150 yards and 2 touchdowns against this defense. Like, I mean, I don't know how indoors, like the way Dak's playing, and then like I said, like the when Dak's been kept clean, like I mean, Lamb, he just feels like such a smash.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get much pushback from that. The only pushback is probably just salary stuff, lineup construction. Certainly you're not going to be upset if Lamb is on your team. Pollard, did we mention Pollard? Are we ignoring Pollard? Do we don't want to talk about Pollard?
We can't ignore him against this run defense, unfortunately. But I want to.
Yeah, Dowdle, too ambitious.
Super punt. You got that's gonna be super large field.
Yeah,
but there's how you get an extra receiver.
That's how you're just going all out with the receivers, and you're
just
basically going to run like
he's got to score a touchdown if you do it. But they're starting to use Dowdle as a pass catcher though heavily. Like he's getting way more targets than Tony Pollard is getting. Like he's coming in and almost they're dialing up a couple screens for him and near the red zone screens.
Season high in targets last week 4. 2 and 3 the previous weeks, but typically, like to your point, like it's 1 or 0. So getting more.
He's 5K on FanDuel, and what is he on DraftKings?
4.6.
FanDuel 5K is a lot better than 4.6 on DraftKings.
I think so. Yeah.
Pollard was having a good game too, and they still use Dowdle.
Is that that seems like an interesting.
We're getting Pollard as a huge home favorite against a team that generally has not stopped the run in bulk this year. So like he can't be ignored, but also, no.
Yeah, he has not had like one like big game all season.
Yeah, he hasn't had like that 30-pointer, man. Like I feel like even if he gets there, he's not going to drag me.
He has not had 23 points all season on DK.
Yeah, so I just feel like even if he hits and has a touchdown, that like he's just not going to.
And his salary is not really. You're not really saving anything. That's the thing. Like it's not cheap enough to like tantalize you.
Yeah, dude, 7-8 on FanDuel, and
yeah.
But on paper, like the lead back, a team of 51 total, like 7.5 point favorite. Like, how do you not want this guy? It's like, oh no, that's the guy. I don't know. I don't think I want him now. Return. All right. Anything else to say as far as Packers, Cowboys, or shall we move on? We are moving on. Rams, Detroit.
Fun game.
Am I wrong to say that like Sunday night is like the premier night as far as schedule wise and as far as like viewership? That's the game that's going to get the most.
Yeah, because it has everything, right? Like you've got the narrative angle, you've got the Stafford returning to Detroit, Goff versus the team that jettisoned him, Ben Johnson working under Sean McVay, Brad Holmes coming from the Rams. You also have like people love to root for like the downtrodden franchises too. I mean, this is the first playoff game in Detroit since 1993. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991, which is not only the longest drought in the NFL, it's the longest drought in the 4 major sports. And then from a fantasy side, it has the highest game total. Like this game literally has a little bit of something for everyone, no matter what, avenue you come in from an approach of wanting to watch this game.
Yeah. I was thinking like general public wise, like I'm not surprised at all Cleveland and Houston gets the early Saturday. Like that's not surprising. I just thought Dallas, Green Bay, 2 historic. I thought that would be like the Sunday night game. And it's still in a good spot, right? It's just, I was a little bit surprised that Rams, I get why. And I'm not saying you're wrong in this game. Probably Rams, Detroit. If I had to bet which one's like the most fun, probably Rams, Detroit. 51.5 is a total. Detroit, like 3-point favorite, high and tight. I'll let you open this up here, John. Rams, Detroit, start wherever you want to start.
Rich mentioned Amon-Ra and Reynolds, so I'll leave the Lions side for him. I'll take the Rams side. So far, we've seen this year that the league average yards per play is 5.2. It closed after week 18. The Lions on the year average 5.9 yards per play as an obviously elite offense. But with Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua on the field, the Rams have averaged 6.7 yards per play this year. So we think the Rams, especially against this Lions secondary, will continue to move the ball with ease. And that's what kind of makes it a lot of fun because we don't think Kyron Williams can get there. We've been in this spot before where if you're a running back getting 30 touches, you can definitely fall forward for touchdowns and shove it right back in our faces. But the only two running backs to eclipse 20 PPR points against Detroit since their bye in Week 10, Austin Eckler and Alvin Kamara, they really did that through the air with 8 and 11 receiving points in those games as opposed to on the ground. And in that span, Detroit is allowing only 3.3 yards per carry to opposing running backs. So it does seem like a bit of a trap ownership spot on the main slate and Sunday for Kyron. The thing is, and I'm so glad redraft season ended before we could reach this point, and it's because the Rams now, as Rich even touched on DeMarcus Robinson, like the Rams have someone else soaking up target share now. And I wouldn't be able to sort it out through start-sit decisions because in their last 4 games together since Robinson became a full-time player in the lineup and 3-wide sets, it is Cooper Kupp with a 25% target share, Puka with a 24%, and then DeMarcus Robinson with a 20% target share. In those 4 games as well, he's actually tied for the league lead in end zone targets. A lot like how the team was using Odell Beckham during their Super Bowl run. So Robinson is not only a player to like pay down for with Stafford, to one-off even if you want exposure to this game, like he's being used like a ceiling receiver in this offense in a great spot. Is this like Is this the 6th week in a row, Reebs?
Muted.
Oh, I was on mute. My apologies.
I'm sure you were making a good point, though.
Yeah, get one out the door.
I'll just throw it to Rich, and I'll put on my dunce cap and stand in the corner.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we talked about like the Dallas like home splits. I mean, Detroit's been just as different, right? Like, I mean, they've actually scored touchdowns at a higher rate per drive at home than the Cowboys have. I think that this game is going to be massively fun. Both pass defenses, I don't think are going to stop either pass offense. I think that the loss of Laporta definitely is probably a potentially big deal. But I'm probably, because I think a lot of the public's picking the Rams here. I kind of like the Lions here, and it's because of their run game. I think they're going to be able to run. First of all, they've run on everybody. Like, no matter what, they've run the ball on everybody. They're second in the NFL, their running backs are, and carries this season, rushing yards. They're second in rushing touchdowns this season. They've had bad matchups and they run on them. This is not a bad matchup. Going against a team that's middle of the pack and yards per carry allowed to running backs, 18th in success rate against running backs. I think the Lions are going to be able to run the football on the Rams. Also, when you look at what the Rams do defensively, it's all the things Jared Goff has been good against. Like, you want to disrupt Jared Goff. You want to blitz him. You want to be able to create pressure. You want to be able to play man coverage. The Rams do none of those things. He's 22nd in the NFL in pass rating against pressure, 20th against man coverage, 12th against the blitz. Rams, 17th in pressure rate. Blitz only the 16th highest rate of the time. They play man coverage, the 28th highest rate of the time. Jared Goff has thrown the most touchdowns against zone coverage in the league. He's also thrown the most touchdowns against the coverages that the Rams run, cover 3, cover 4, and cover 6. The loss of Laporta is a big deal. We've also seen this Rams kind of defense catch up to them over the back half of the season. Since their bye, they're allowing 2 passing touchdowns per game. That's 29th in the NFL. I do think the Lions have a lot of offensive success here. We'll see what Laporta, the loss of him, means. I also don't think the Lions are going to stop the Rams passing game either, but that's what kind of sets this up. This is the bonanza game, man.
When I ran my projections, it actually did grade the Lions a lot better in this game than I thought. Whereas, like, I do think the Rams are more of a threat to make a Super Bowl run, but this is a very dangerous game. It seems like the line is perfect because it will be close.
It looks pretty likely Laporta, if not fully out, is going to be limited. Or I can't really, what was the exact line from Coach? Like, long shot. He's got, it doesn't look spectacular. We'll see. If he's limited or like not playing at all, do we care about Mitchell or Brock Wright? Do we consider them as like cheap, flat out punt tight ends? Okay.
No, because we've seen this last year when they traded TJ Hawkinson, they shifted everything to the running backs. And that's kind of what makes this interesting, because the Rams have actually been really good against running backs out of the backfield. And that includes allowing only 19 receiving yards to Christian McCaffrey, just 16 receiving yards to Alvin Kamara a couple weeks ago. But when they traded TJ Hawkinson last year, well, prior to the trade of TJ Hawkinson, they had targeted their running backs 17.5% of the time. Guess what their target rate is targeting running backs with Sam Laporta this year? 17.8, literally identical. When they traded away Hawkinson, they became second in the NFL in target rate to running backs at 24% of the time. They have yet to really use Jahmyr Gibbs as a pass catcher. But we kind of go by how Ben Johnson calibrated this offense, losing kind of his pass catching tight end, I would assume those targets do go to those guys and then you'll get some trickle down through like Jameson Williams and then Josh Reynolds, who also has a revenge game narrative street for him too.
Oh yeah.
If we want to go down that road as well, because Khalif Raymond probably isn't going to play in this game either. Another Lion that got hurt. That was a substantial, part of the special teams game and creating big plays in the passing game that Dan Campbell decided was expendable as well by playing in week 18. So I do like Josh Reynolds a little bit. I think Gibbs catches more passes. It still is a fringe matchup. Also, books are cowards, dude. They're not even posting Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush. Not even posting it.
Oh, they didn't post it last week.
It's hit 10 weeks in a row. 10 weeks in a row it's hit that they posted. They didn't post it last week. Neither book posted it. They haven't posted it yet this week. Cowards.
Do we like Jameson Williams? He practiced in Fulham. No, you don't like it?
You do as a touchdown and a one-off.
One big play? No?
Yeah, just one big play.
He's not going to get a ton of volume, right? But they might script a play for him, right?
The thing is that even when he's had his big plays, he still has not had any fantasy relevant games.
Okay. All right. John, if you're going to build...
That's the problem.
John, let's say this was like a showdown for whatever. You're going to obviously play this in showdown as well. Like, how would you build like the stack in this game?
Stafford, well, it's hard to play from Stafford because you also then got to get Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua right. Because I still want to play Robinson. Maybe Goff, Gibbs, and Amon Ra, and Robinson coming back.
Okay, Rich, your thoughts on that?
I definitely think I definitely want exposure because we're going to be playing a lot of wide receivers, but I definitely, in the larger my field size increases, want to be playing Lions running backs, probably even David Montgomery, just because he's probably going to come in substantially lower owned than Gibbs.
Always does. Yeah.
And it's kind of, and it is really a true like 50-50 split too between these guys. And even in the goal line, like there's like no clear, like we know Gibbs is going to play more snaps because he plays passing downs, but literally from a touch count and who gets like the money touches, these guys have been kind of interchangeable.
I'm checking our projection. I'm curious how close it is between those two. We have 17 DK points as a median score for Gibbs and about 13.5 for Montgomery. I thought it'd be a little closer than that. Gibbs is a little bit more expensive, but dollar for dollar, Gibbs looks a lot better. But ownership wise, it's going to reflect.
By the way, a shout out to Derek Carty. I have no idea if he listens, but last week he took a stand all the way up to lineup lock when things changed, so he had to adjust a little bit. But all week long, he had Nick Mullins as his number one quarterback on the slate. Yeah. And Nick Mullins took down the slate.
Yeah, I think the cash game king. Overzet took everybody out there had. And you know what? I'll take the fall on this one. I played a little cash games and I was stubborn. I'm like, no, I'm not playing Mullins. I didn't do it. And it burned me. And I felt okay about it for like a quarter and a half. And then he threw like for 380 yards and really stuck it to me.
It was Mullins, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb is like all you needed to play. And you got there. Yeah. Man, it's a feel. I know it's like in the moment and it's hard to kind of step back. But did you guys feel like this season, more than most seasons, like it was just more chalktastic than it's ever been? I feel like the chalk like really hit hard, and like it's one of those things. Sometimes just you only remember the photo finishes you lose, not the ones you win. But it just felt like a really chalky season to me. We did say that last year, but I think what's happening is that projections are getting more accurate the more work we all do, and everyone's beginning to use the same 3 to 5 companies. But really, then like the projections are just objectively good plays. Like that's why everyone's playing them. So we're trying to poke holes. So like when the chalk gets there, it's like literally the best projected plays got there. It's not even like offensive. We're just trying to leverage off of it. So if the best plays get there every week and we're getting better at this, then that just makes sense that we continue saying that to increasing amounts every single season.
If you got a thought on that, Rich, by all means, go for it. Otherwise, final thoughts when it comes to Rams, Lions. Who wins, by the way? Who wins this game? It's a betting show now. We got to get betting takes, Rich. If you have
I feel like I'm in the minority, but I like the Lions here. I think they match up really well in this. I mean, I'm scared because I think the Rams are going to throw all over them. because they just can't stop at the pass. But I really think the Lions are going to run the football really well in this game.
All right. Anything else we should say here as far as the Saturday night slate outside of a flag plant? You got to plant a flag.
But did you have who are you guys taking? Don't make me just pick this game, the tightest game on the slate. I want to hear you guys pick. I'm the only guy looking dumb.
I'm the I was on a podcast earlier this week and I can't remember who I picked because I was asked to pick and I don't recall what I said, to be honest.
Leon in the chat is wrong. The Lions actually, their pass rush is good. They're one of the highest pressure rate teams in the NFL. Their secondary sucks though.
Yeah.
John, I'll yield to you and then I'll counter.
I luckily took the Rams plus the hook at 3.5 early in the week, so I feel good with that number. I genuinely think it's close. I still have the Rams. It is though, like you said, Reeves, it is getting mushed. It almost feels like everyone, although they're dogs and road dogs at that, it almost feels like everyone thinks the Rams are just like the should be favored, and I always worry when the public's leaning that direction.
And the one other thing about backing the Lions is versus the Rams is Dan Campbell's going to always do the thing you want to do as a bettor. Like he's not punting on 4th and 3. Like McVay's punting. McVay is punting on like the Lions 48. McVay's going to punt.
In this game environment, in this like a shootout game,
that's what McVay does. Shanahan and McVay do the same thing. Shanahan is like one of the most brilliant head coach, like the play designers and offensive like designers we've had. And he's cost the 49ers probably 2 playoff wins just by being like a donkey on stuff like that.
You're saying he's a fake sharp. Is that what you're saying?
Just being over conservative. McVay has done this his whole career. McVay has been ultra conservative his whole career. Dan Campbell, I know if I'm putting money on the Lions, Dan Campbell's going to try to win me that game. He's at least, it might not work, but I know Dan Campbell's going to try to win me that game.
Yeah, he's going for 2 from the 7-yard line. Of course, he's going for it.
He's going to be reckless about it to the point where maybe even loses me. He's going to be the reason I lose. But he's going to try to get it. Try to get me.
There are many instances if you sift through it, but McVay did try to lose that Super Bowl against the Bengals. He was doing his damnedest to not attack them through the air. Just the injuries caught up to them, and the Rams ended up winning.
Shout out to Pete Carroll. We got rid of one more guy that he loved nothing more than running the ball and punting on 4th and 3. It was a good run for Pete Carroll. Both him and Saban on the same day, 72 years old. I assume they're done coaching. They're talking about Carroll maybe being in the Seattle organization up in the offices. But all right, enough with the guys that are punting the ball on 4th and 3. Let's get a little math into the game. Philadelphia takes on Tampa. Tampa's a 3-point favorite at home. 43.5. Yeah, we'll touch on this one. Give whatever thoughts you may have. Despite the fact Philadelphia is sputtering into the playoffs, where they lost 5 of the last 6, something like that. Tampa's getting 3 points at home here. Man, this is a tough one. It's a tough. By the way, I'll take the Rams and the points. Just give me I think these teams are pretty straight up. I'll give me the points, and maybe I'm a donkey for saying that, but that's kind of where I'm at too. I figure it's gonna be close. I want the hook though. I think the hook's gone most places.
Yeah, it's down to 3.
John, open it up. Philadelphia, the Eagles at Tampa Monday night.
Since the Eagles made the change to Matt Patricia before the Drew Lock game, and remember, he came out afterwards and talked about how he basically spent the entire day trying to find his confidence because he didn't even know if he could play quarterback anymore. But since then, Kyler scored 23 fantasy points and practically did it all through the air. Only had 24 rushing yards in that game. Tyrod Taylor came off the bench and averaged over 8 yards per pop. And then last week in his full start against the Eagles, Taylor averaged 9.2 yards per attempt. The Eagles have gotten worse on defense since Matt Patricia took over somehow. A lot of it's due to injuries. A lot of it's for the exact reason we talked about with James Conner in the past, and the list goes on for even Saquon Barkley got there. It's that also the Eagles' trenches are falling apart too, and they just can't stop anyone on the ground or the air. I may be putting too much weight into Baker Mayfield getting the extra 24 hours to get healthy, because last week the Bucs should have lost that game. And since he's now going through ankle and rib injuries, Baker's been terrible the last 2 weeks. But it's such a soft spot, honestly, assuming he's healthy because he gets this extra time to rest. I don't know how the Eagles stop the Bucs. And I think the Bucs are the better team right now, given all of the injuries Philadelphia's dealing with, on offense included. So since it's a betting show, I like the Bucs money line. I think the Bucs just win the game outright. They're going to get demolished in the divisional round, but right now the Eagles just aren't healthy enough to do anything. And so I do like Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield. I would love to say Rachaad White, since again the Eagles are just leaking running backs, but we even had our spot last week against the Panthers, and most of the time, I mean, this Bucs offense just can't run at all. So it just seems the safest way to do this is Evans or Godwin, and I doubt many people hold over spots through Monday, even in the 6-game slate, to play either of them.
Brown and Smith currently questionable for the Monday game. Hurts also he hurt his finger. As of right now, well, we'll see. I'm assuming they're all going to play to various degrees, but I'm assuming they're in unless otherwise noted. Rich, your thoughts, Philadelphia, Tampa. Are you on board? Do you think we're getting an upset here? There's going to be this one upset. There has to be at least one upset in the Super Wild Card weekend.
Yeah, I don't know. The Bucs are such a tough team to support. Like they're 3-7 against teams with a winning record this year. They're 1-5 against playoff teams. That win came against the Packers. They're one of the you ask how the Eagles can stop the Bucs. Well, the Bucs frequently stop the Bucs.
That's fair. Yeah.
52% of their set of downs reach third down. That's 30th in the NFL. The only team with the worst rate is the Panthers and the Giants. They're 20th in dropback rate on early downs, despite ranking dead last in early down rushing success rate. Like Daigle said, like they can't run. They keep trying to run. So like that's the way, right? Like the Bucs stop the Bucs. This is one of the rematches that we also have. It feels like another season ago, but the Buccaneers did have the fewest yards they had in a game this season against the Eagles. So I don't know, man. Like the Buccaneers are just a hard team to support. The Eagles are a very hard team to support too, from a talent perspective. Like their guys are better. I don't know who's playing though, so I'm waiting to see. Cause like I forgot they played on Monday. So today I was trying to get like practice reports, but it's like not a real practice day for them anyways, because the week kind of being shifted. Like it's really a Tuesday for them. So,
and we like no one is saying anything about
nobody.
Brown.
We don't know anything.
There's not a single report about how the hell AJ Brown is doing. We don't know if he's out.
How is that possible?
Like Nick Sirianni came out after the game and said he's fine, but it was more of a pissed off coach just like shunning the media. He's like, nah, he's fine. We're good. But like, we have no idea how he is.
Yeah. And the other part is like, if you're playing like the 6-game slate or something like that, you don't want to be stuck like at the last second. Hopefully we get some reporting Saturday, Sunday where you can make adjustments.
Especially because all the expensive receivers that are so crucial to the big 6-game slate. Imagine like holding over for an AJ Brown without Devonta Smith to just take a chance, and then suddenly you lose 5K because you have to go down to Julio Jones instead. Like what a disaster that would be.
Or you just play Mike Evans, right? Mike Evans should be really good in this game, I think.
We thought so until when Chris Godwin's wife roasted Dave Canales on social media, and then Dave Canales came out and said that he also needs to get Chris Godwin more involved. Like they flip-flopped. Like they literally, their target shares have flip-flopped. It's been like Godwin coming on and Evans has been volatile. Because remember, Baker hasn't been playing good enough football to support two guys at once, especially the past 2 weeks. So
here's what we need. Ashley Dotson is married to Mike Evans. She now has to rebut and say, hey, Mike Evans over here. This guy's a future Hall of Famer. Godwin's all fine and everything, but we got to let him get fed as well too. So we need Ashley.
And I doubt that's the whole reason, but it is just funny that it lines up like exactly like Dave Canales coming out after I think it was on Instagram, like got after Canales, and then like Godwin's been getting a lot of targets and magically looks healthy, the past 6 weeks.
Well, she had a whole thing. She was like, his routes are great. He's cutting spectacular. Like she really laid it out. And I would throw him the ball too. Sure. And Godwin,
the good news is no one else on the Bucs still really gets targets outside of those two guys, Rachaad White. Like Kate Otten is an official wind sprinter. You got like Trey Palmer runs some routes, but like you can't play him on a 6-gamer. Like you could show down Trey Palmer, but like you can't play him on the 6-gamer. So at least we know, like even if you can't guess, like we know that it's still going to be a thin target tree.
Maybe Goddard could be interesting for Philly if we have some limited receivers there. But
he might be the guy at tight end you just play and say maybe neither of those guys are healthy, and if they both play half-mast, like we know the Bucs, we know that tight ends have gotten there against the Bucs this year. Goddard himself has not. It's like again, like what kind of ceiling are we getting? But like maybe on this slate he just ends up being by default the best tight end. But like these guys that just haven't shown the ceiling, like we talked about Tony Pollard, we're talking about Dallas Goedert, Jameson Williams. Like, how many weeks do we have to keep doing it? Like, are we going to keep doing it?
Well, we only have so many left. This might be the last time for Dallas Goedert. We'll see if John's prediction is true. If Tampa wins this game outright, Anything else we should say as far as Philadelphia, Tampa? We did not plant the flag officially. Did we in a person as far as our favorite Saturday play? I'm sorry, favorite Sunday play. We didn't do that. I don't think we did. I think we somehow was thrown out there and it got deflected in some way. So let's.
We didn't even. We barely didn't even talk about Amon-Ra, especially in the game without Laporta. Like he's gonna cook.
If the people don't know, you're listening to this podcast on week 19. They know this is we're pro Amon-Ra. We love Amon-Ra. He's spectacular, and we didn't get the hard sell. But,
so I'm glad you kicked it to Reeves to talk about CeeDee Lamb. I was like, he's CeeDee Lamb. What do you want me to tell you? Like he's gonna roast the game. Amon-Ra even like. Only Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, just to add context, have been targeted at a higher percentage of their routes against zone coverage, which, as we said, the Rams play, than Amon-Ra. And that's basically because everyone knows they can't man up against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, so they have to play zone coverage against the Dolphins. So Amon-Ra, especially about Laporta, who leads the team in red zone touchdowns with 10, like Amon-Ra is absolutely going to cook.
I'm trying to think who would my slate breaker be. I'm thinking Gibbs, possibly. I don't want to steal somebody else's. This is the Sunday only. It's Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Green Bay, Dallas, Rams, Detroit. And I have no idea how chalky he's going to be. It's so hard to read because there's so many moving parts. But I think Gibbs is somebody I just want in this game. That's what I'm sticking with. John, give me your favorite play on Sunday.
I won't say Steelers defense since I already said Texas defense. So I will point people to DeMarcus Robinson. I think he's my favorite. Even in the main slate, one-off him. I think I like DeMarcus a lot.
Rich?
No, man, I don't know. I love all these guys. I don't have I like a lot of guys. They're really good players and they're really good. I don't have a favorite guy that stands out right now. I mean, Lamb and Amon-Ra seem like smashes. I think Puka does really well. You can make an argument for Kupp. Stafford looks like he's gonna obviously have a huge game. I like Lions running backs. It's just I like them all, man. I like all the guys.
You got Kupp.
I got to make a bunch of lineups on Sunday.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's gonna be a fun week.
I gotta find a way to build around the different angles of both of those games. Getting Lions running backs, whether it gets two Lion running backs together, even. And not on Amon-Ra teams. There's just a lot of ways to play. There's a lot of ways to play that Sunday game. We talked about even just punting with Dowdle and just trying to get to one more receiver. I put Dowdle in, and he does get you another receiver if you want to do it. On FanDuel especially because he's 5K, and 5K on FanDuel could be massive if just no one has a 20-point running back game.
Yeah,
it's interesting you say that even FanDuel and probably beneficial to run out 4 receivers because it's the way their scoring system works. Touchdown base, half point PPR. Typically, you're rolling out 3 running backs. Typically, I think that's the general build. You don't always have to do that, but it's
on
interesting.
A 3-game slate, though.
Yeah,
you don't have to. I mean, you can get 3 really good wide receivers on FanDuel with Dowdle, 3 really good wide receivers.
Uh-huh.
Real good. I'm talking about 8K and up wide receivers.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun building some lineups. Any final words, or we're gonna be leading and talking about our movie shortly.
If you want to, in the Big 6 game, if you would need a cheapie as well, not that I want to waste a receiver spot, but Kez Watkins did get 5 targets in the first half last week without Devonta Smith. And the Bucs, as we know, it's a secondary we've been targeting. So you got to hold it over till Monday. You're going to have enough injury reports, hopefully by Saturday, to make those late swap decisions. But he was targeted.
You got him ahead of Julio?
Julio's more of a tight end. Julio only comes in once, and it's fine. It's touchdown or bust. But Julio really only runs routes inside the red zone, and then he just gets off of it. Whereas Quez only scores outside of the red zone.
Do we have producer Rob coming in for the movie section? I didn't get a chance to run by him, but usually he's popping in around this time. Here he is, producer Rob, jumping in. If you have what's up, Rob? If you have any thoughts as far as the main slate, by all means, go for it. I'm sure you're smashing the best ball streets. I'm playing too. It's kind of fun. I'm excited about best ball. Of course, you're over there in the Spike Week. Check out spikeweek.com for your best ball needs. But Rob, if you have any takes as far as the slate, by all means, fire them off. I'm not sure if you've been listening. But we got a bunch for the people. Gave him an hour and a half for the 6-gamer. And, what do you got, Rob?
Well, the best ball streets are fun because every company released new tournaments this week. So Underdog released a new gauntlet tournament. So if you were worried about people building super teams over the last month and a half, 2 months, now there's a brand new gauntlet. DraftKings dropped all their stuff this week. The Drafters one is a completely different format. So you could go to any of the companies you want to and play. And I'll give a hot take on the best ball streets, kind of, where everyone's trying to build these teams through San Francisco, Buffalo, Dallas, and rightfully so. But especially with the San Francisco and Baltimore teams you're building, I think that it's really viable for a secondary stack to be the Green Bay Packers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because you're trying to get these San Fran teams through. Dallas, you think, will probably throttle Green Bay, but even if they do, there might be a lot of garbage time there. So if you're trying to get these San Francisco and Baltimore teams through, start looking at some of those teams that aren't always getting drafted. You can get anyone you want on Green Bay for any price. You can get almost any of the Tampa Bay guys. Mike Evans has moved up a little bit, and I like Aaron Jones a ton on the DFS side of things and on the best ball side of things, just as a guy that gets you through 1 week if you have like Christian McCaffrey or something like that.
I've been doing the same thing. The 9th and 10th round, I'll get Aaron Jones. I never like getting like a la carte pieces, but it's that tough decision of this guy might get me to round 2, but then he can die, kind of like. But if I don't have him, maybe I don't get to round 2. So and then I'm picking the 7th receiver for Baltimore. That seems like a terrible idea. It's really hard to get San Fran stacks, like you talked about. The first, is it? Their 5 pieces. Their first 5 guys are gone, like in the top 12, top 14, whatever it is. So yeah. Maybe you can get 3 if you're really lucky.
I've been doing a lot of Chiefs, Ravens, AFC Championship stacks with like favoring the Chiefs just in case they slip through.
I build mostly one team pretty heavily, whether it's an AFC or NFC team, and then I try to mix in 2 pieces from 2 to 3 teams from the other conference.
Like a 6-2-2, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the site, because, some of the sites, it's your starting 5 or your starting 6, so it really... Right. It's dependent on which site you're on, but that's kind of the way I've been playing it a lot. And you can do it with cheap guys. I even do it with the Packers. Yes, we think the Packers are going to lose, but I don't know about you guys. Last year, it felt like we were talking about this on Spike Week the other night. I felt like the Chiefs and Eagles were making the Super Bowl last year. This year, it feels, I know the 49ers look like a juggernaut, but it still feels like that this is a pretty wide open playoffs and that there could be any 2 teams.
I've never seen Mike McCarthy screw up a close game, so I don't know.
Like, I just keep saying, like, I know San Fran and Baltimore are considered to be the top tier in each, the AFC, the NFC, and the playoffs are only so many teams, but there's like 18 teams that are like basically the same. There's so many, it's parity. There's so much parity in this league that they're all kind of, sort of, somewhat the same. Wouldn't shock me, if we get a goofy path. And like you said, nobody's playing the Packers, and you can get them like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can just load up with the Packers, and hopefully you got some good stuff on the other side somewhere in the AFC. But all right,
the Browns were like that too, and now the Browns are starting to shoot up the draft boards.
It's fun though. I enjoy it, and I may or may not have like drafted like 3 times on drafters till I realized, oh wait, I got to start a tight end. I did not know that. That is unfortunate. You got to read the rules.
You got to read the rules, dude. You got to read the rules.
Yeah. I might have got a tight end, but I might have done, and that seems like that's going to be troublesome.
That's really the first rule of best ball is like the moment you enter that draft, just click the info button, or scroll down as quick as you can, look at the rosters, and then you could exit. Be like, okay, I can draft from there. You got to know the roster.
Talk about the first rule of best ball. If you watch money playing, I think there's 3 rules of money playing, if I remember correctly. We'll talk about. Well, rule number 1 is don't watch it. I think it's rule number 1. My apologies to anybody that watched along. But Rob found like a discount code on Amazon Prime. He got us for like 77 cents. I paid the full $2.99, and I'm looking for a rebate.
I just clicked on it, man, and it was just like, here, this movie's so bad, we're gonna give it to you for 74 cents. And there might be an apology email from Amazon somewhere too. Like, we're sorry, we charged you 74 cents to watch this movie, but we had to.
I thought it would be unintentionally funny. I misread this. Money Plane came out in 2020. Ooh. It's an hour and 22 minutes long. It's the longest hour and 22 minutes of your life, possibly. Here is the synopsis. A professional thief with $40 million in debt and his family's life on the line must commit one final heist, rob a futuristic airborne casino filled with the world's most dangerous criminals. Like, that sounds like fun. Like, in theory, it's like, oh, this could be ridiculous and fun at the same time. And Kelsey Grammer's in it. Wait, and Edge of wrestling fame is in it. Thomas Jane from Hung. Oh, I remember him. Denise Richards, spoiler alert, she's in like one scene. Like, why is she in this movie? Like, who said let's have her? Was she just like hanging out in the set? Like, you want to play the wife? Okay, here's your one scene. Memorize these lines. All right. You know what? I'm going to throw it to Rich because Rich seemed most upset that that he had to watch this movie. I want you to open up your thoughts on Money Plane.
I didn't finish it. I did not finish it. I couldn't do it. I mean, I made it to the Russian roulette scene, and that was it. I had to draw that.
You actually
That's like 25 minutes. That's
yeah.
like 25 minutes.
That's all I got. And here's the reason I stopped watching it. Because the 25 minutes or 35 minutes I watched replaced something I knew. And I just needed whatever replaced more than I needed that 35 minutes. And I couldn't risk the rest of the movie replacing anything else that I had consumed in my life, whether I needed it or not. The movie is that deplorable. It's like if I gave my kids a video camera and told them to make a movie. Like this, it's like what would happen? Like it, and I don't. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely the worst thing in my life.
Have you not seen
and I like campy, like I'm in for like campy bad shit, and Rob's was like into horror, so he's watched like some campy bad shit in his life. But like this is like this is just like dudes fucking around making a movie, man. Like
no, this is called money laundering. This is exactly what this movie was.
It's not even the right production cameras. It is literally like a backyard camera shooting these scenes.
Yeah. This is literally money laundering. They're like, we're gonna pay a bunch of people that people know. We're gonna filter some money through some production companies, and that's how this movie got made. I mean, they do a whole scene where like Edge is like the main star, and then like halfway through the movie, he's flying the plane for the rest of the movie, not doing anything.
What Reeves didn't get to this part, and if he had, I even told myself Reeves is gonna hate this part because
he would have hated it more if he kept going.
Rich, what you missed was for some reason after Edge knocked out the pilot, for some reason the co-pilot was basically a black belt teacher and knew how to fight Edge in karate, and it made zero sense at all. Like, why?
Also, Edge did not anticipate there was a co-pilot. It was like, oh my god, there's a co-pilot.
He was legitimately shocked there was a co-pilot. Like, as if it's never
billionaires
existed.
Billionaires like on board, and oh wait, they have a just in case the original pilot, in case he had to fish. We're gonna need a plan B. Yeah,
the guy that's planning this master heist couldn't figure out the personnel that's on the plane. Is what happened in that scene.
Kelsey Grammer's name is amazing. Darius the Rumble Grouch III, and he announces that several times throughout the movie, which is just amazing. You missed that part, Rich. Also, there's this character who's like they go in under like they have like the fake names, right? And one of the fake names is Mr. McGillicuddy, and nobody's ever been named Mr. McGillicuddy in real life. That's all they use as a fake name, and that's the fake name they gave him, Mr. McGillicuddy. It's like right there, I'm suspicious. Like, you're not who you say you are.
It is honestly a lot like Fat Man in that it's so hard to be original nowadays. Like, you just can't create something unique. So when you get to that lane, you better go all in and do something right. And I feel like you said, Rich or Dean, the synopsis is really good. Like, I am interested in like the most evil billionaires on a plane gambling. That sounds amazing to me. But boy, did they just not hit anything else the moment the title scene came on.
Yeah, they even went for the right premise at one point where they're gambling on like the most disgusting shit, like people fighting cobras and stuff. And they didn't lean into that enough. If you're gonna do that, lean into that a little more. The Lawrence brothers in this movie. Is there anything worse than the Lawrence brothers in this movie?
Well, did you know that Andrew Lawrence, the third lead amongst the Lawrence brothers, is of course Matthew Lawrence, and there is Joey Lawrence of Blossom fame. So Andrew Lawrence, I think, is the youngest of the three. He wrote and directed this, and he cast his brothers. Yeah, like you've heard of the Hemsleys before, the Hemsley brothers. You've heard of like the Gyllenhaals. Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez. This is the Lawrence brothers are taking over Hollywood.
They had their own show. I can't even remember what it was. It might have been called Brotherly Love. I can't remember for sure, but like when we were in high school or whatever, they had a show with the three of them on the Disney Channel or something. But Matthew Lawrence in a movie full of bad things, and I understand why Rich shut it off at the Russian roulette part. In a movie full of bad acting and bad decisions and bad everything, Matthew Lawrence's Texas Tycoon guy.
Oh, so bad.
And
he even told you, he's like, I'm from Texas. Like, yeah, we know what you're trying to do.
Dude, I couldn't, man. I couldn't power through. Like, Rob tried to will me, and I just couldn't, man. Do
you want me to vend you like $3? I feel bad. I'm happy to do that. This is my fault.
So I was under the premise that, Dean, you had seen the movie and you had known it was that bad, and the joke was on us, and that's why I was mad at you. I'm actually even like, I'll give you a hall pass now because you didn't know, like you just assumed it was like bad fun, so I'll give you a hall pass and you didn't purposely try to.
I'm upset too. I'm just as upset. I powered through, but I was not happy about it.
I have a few crutch phrases I lean on whenever I'm thinking through my thoughts when I speak. And I know that. And one of them is I've spent $2 on worse things. Or if I want to play like a bad player in DFS, I've spent $50 on worse things than Rico Dowdle. I'm not kidding. I don't think I've spent $2 on a worse thing than money playing.
But you got it for $2. I paid $3. You paid $2.
I got SD and $1.99 and trust me, there is no difference in SD to HD because even the camera can't comprehend that in this movie.
I had a 30-second debate. I'm like, SD $1.99, HD $2.99. And I'm like, screw it, HD. No and like, didn't notice anything spectacular.
To be fair, though, I even mentioned in the chat that we had, I looked down. I hadn't started it yet. I was planning on watching it last night. I looked down at the chat, and the first thing I see is, I want to fight you, Dean, when Rich was messaging you. So I was like, okay, the extra $1 is not going to matter here. I just need to make it through it.
John in chat, by the way, we usually the IMDb game, the Rotten Tomatoes game. John in chat is telling us that according to Wikipedia, this movie grossed $618.
Not $618K.
No,
618.
608, and that's half of that is the Lawrence family. I'm pretty sure.
Half of that is us buying it over this week.
It's since been updated in the last couple of days.
We got it over the 600 mark.
All right, it was 612, but we helped it out.
This movie breaks the absolute cardinal rule in terms of, I know this isn't a horror movie, but there is very specific types of horror movies that you watch, and the ones that are so bad they're good are never intentionally bad, and they are actually trying, right? When you're self-aware of what you are and you're trying to play into be that type of movie, it never works. You can never be intentionally bad and try to be funny and ham it up, because it always comes off like Yosemite Sam rather than someone that just doesn't know how to act, right?
Adam Copeland thought he was the next John Cena, the way he was trying to act. He thought this was going to launch his career, and he was going to be with, like Molly McGrath and other actresses down the road in rom-coms. That is not the case.
Well, he did Vikings, right? Like that show. I haven't watched Vikings all the way through, but from all reports, he was pretty good on that, and the show Haven, which wasn't a show that I watched either. But supposedly those two shows are really good. He wasn't bad, but you could just tell that they had everybody for a certain amount of days, and I feel like they rewrote the movie halfway through, where they're like, "Well, we only have Edge on set for 2 more days. Let's stick him in the pilot's chair for 40 minutes and just make him talk into the thing to Kelsey Grammer, who, God, Matthew Lawrence was bad. Kelsey Grammer was teetering on the point of being just as bad. And the Rumble, whose nickname is the Rumble? What is that?
He was hamming it up, Kelsey Grammer. He knew this was a giant turd. He was kind of having. I think he was having fun. I think he was having fun with it. There's nothing he can do. He couldn't save this movie. There are some plot holes, but there are a billion plot holes. I don't want to pick them apart. But first of all, by the way, didn't they say there's $1 billion in cryptocurrency on the plane? I'm not a Bitcoin crypto guy, but isn't crypto something that's not something you hold? Am I wrong? Or did you guys understand that?
You can have it on an actual drive, because did you hear about the guy?
On the drive.
Yeah, because there was the one guy, I don't know what the outcome was, but he bought a bunch of Bitcoin when he was younger, put it
Yeah.
on like a locked flash drive and forgot the password and had like 5 chances to remember the password or something
Yes.
like that.
Remember that story.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if he,
Yeah, it was a lot like Ludacris in Fast and the Furious, how he knew nothing about technology, but then by the third one, he was the smartest guy in the world. Like this movie mentioned nothing about crypto, and then like 30 minutes in, all of a sudden, everyone's a Bitcoin expert. I was like, what's going on here? How do we get back on this track now?
I don't know what it's like to be a billionaire. I can't relate, but like I imagine if I was a billionaire, I probably wouldn't be playing Russian roulette. They literally have billionaires playing Russian roulette. It's like, you have a lot to live for, my friend. You've already won. What do you gamble on alligators or something? They have a line about that. Alligators having sex with a person. If you want to bet on that, you can bet on that because we're in international waters. Also, they're in international waters and they're just throwing money out the window into the water. Like, where the money's just going into the ocean. Never like we're going to give it away for people. And it all just goes right in the ocean because they're in international waters. But okay, we don't see that because they don't have the budget to get a picture of a beach or even what's outside the plane. But
the one thing I'll give this movie is during the Russian roulette scene. I think this is the first movie I've ever seen the bullet actually be on the first shot. Because usually most movies are building that tension. So I guess kudos to them for doing something a little bit different than everybody else. But yeah, why at the end of the movie, these people are supposed to be professional thieves. And now they just want to give all the money away, every single one of them. No one on the crew had a problem with that. And shout out to the girl from the crew because she was like the best person in this entire movie. She actually did all of the stunt work, or her character was actually a badass. But everyone
Katrina
else
Norman. I don't know who Katrina Norman is. I'm not sure if you've seen him before, but that's who did the work there, appears. Yeah, that was the other thing. That was my other question. I know why Edge was doing it. Edge was forced to do this. He had to do this job to save his family, his last job, and he gets his crew to do it. And his crew's like, okay, but what's in it for them? They weren't threatened. Their lives weren't threatened beforehand by Kelsey Grammer. But at the end, they're like, they're like, hey, we have this money right here. Anybody want it? No, we're good. Nobody wants it. That's the whole point. That's the reason why you're on that plane.
Yeah.
This is what you missed, Rich. You missed the ending.
Nobody wants the money. Oh, geez. I'm very excited. I cannot wait to hear Rich's tight end, by the way. Rich always puts a tight end on it. I cannot wait to hear what tight end Rich is coming up with.
It's immaculately hard to come up with a tight end to put on the 35 minutes. I think I saw this movie. I think we've got to go with Philip Super Nah, because this movie is a super nah. Like, it's just super nah.
I thought we were going with Kellen Winslow Jr. on this one.
I thought it was like an Immaculate Reception reference where you said immaculate. Like, that doesn't make any sense either. Who was the guy? Was it the Cowboys? Wasn't there like a tight end who he missed a catch in the Super Bowl, like right in his hands? Was it the Cowboys or the Packers?
It was the Cowboys.
Smith? Was the guy's name
Jackie
Smith
Smith
or something like that?
Jackie
Smith. I mean, like, we didn't really think this was going to be the greatest movie of all time, but this is obviously not what I signed up for. We also got to play the IMDb and the Rotten Tomatoes game, and I'm curious how low. How low do scores get on IMDb? I mean, I really have no idea, but I cannot imagine it's really promising.
I'll give it my score while you're pulling that up. I will give this movie a 0.4 out of 5.
And I will top that, since I do out of 10, and I'll give it double what Rob gave it and give it 0.8 out of 10.
It's like a Blutarski, basically, almost.
It's inflation.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like this movie literally was that point in Billy Madison where he talks about that. He gives that whole speech on the puppy who lost it. So he's like, not 1 point in your incoherent rambling. You say, okay, I award you no points. And may God have mercy on your soul. That's like like exactly the listen out.
We're all dumber for having to listen to that speech.
Yes, we're all dumber for having.
Who was the name of the tight end again, Rich? What was the guy's name?
Philip Supernall.
Philip Super.
I believe Titans blocking tight end, I believe.
Philip Supernaw. Let's see. His best season in the NFL, he had 62 yards in 2016. One official touchdown in 2017. He got in the end zone for Tennessee. He played for Tennessee in the back end of his career. Career stats, 14 catches, 163 yards, and he got a tutty. So Yeah. I don't remember Philip Supernaw, but
163 yards, and this movie made $163. So it all comes full circle.
Yeah. And just like this movie, you shouldn't remember Philip Supernaw either.
No.
Can I give it an F plus? Is an F? How do you dress up an F? Like, there's got to be worse movies than this, right?
Oh, but, have you seen Skinamarink?
No. What's that?
Might be the worst movie I watched all last year was Skinamarink.
No, I don't think I've seen that. I'm going to lower it in my queue just in case I accidentally catch it. I'm going to give it an F plus, because I think there's worse movies that exist. IMDb score, the Internet Movie Database score. John, I'll let you set the line for us. What do you think IMDb score is for Money Plane?
Gosh, I mean, it's a percentage
out of 10. It's out of 10. 1 through 10.
Out of 10. And they do decimals. I always forget.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely for Money Plane.
1.2.
All right, Rich.
I mean, dude, if anyone gave this movie more than a 1, they deserve to be locked up in. Right? I don't know I don't know. Like, I'm sure someone has like pulled like the worst ranked movies on IMDb or something. But like, it's got to be like a 2, right? Like, it's got to be something stupid. Like, this movie's awful. Like, it's deplorable. So,
0.7. I'll go 0.7.
It's a 3.2. Like, I don't know how bad.
No, it's not.
I'm just reading it. I'm just telling you what it says. It's on the internet, so it must be true.
No, I'm letting IMDb know that this has ruined their integrity.
The game has been ruined. Let's jump to Rotten Tomatoes. This, of course, 2 different scores. You got the critic score. You have the score from the audience. Rob, you go first here. Give me both the critics and the audience.
Critics are 0%. There's no self-respecting critic that could have given this anything decent. And the audience is 7%.
By the way, I just did a quick Google. Disaster movie. You guys remember Disaster movie? It's like a comedy. That's the lowest rated IMDb movie of all time, apparently. 1.9
movie?
Yeah. Yes. I think it's like
those don't count. Those are just trash.
Super Babies, Baby Geniuses 2. It's like a 1.5. Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas.
Oh my God. Have you guys seen anything on that? Yeah. Have you seen anything on? I went down a rabbit hole on that movie one time.
I did not. No. The Hottie and the Naughty, I think that's Paris Hilton, got a 2. But House of the Dead, that's a horror movie, right, Rob?
Yeah, 2.1. Really bad. Super bad. Terrible
Son of the Mask 2.3. So there's worse movies, according to IMDb. I didn't mean to derail the game, but I thought there were some interesting, terrible movies there to talk about. John, what do you got for Rotten Tomatoes? Give me both scores.
3.2 is shockingly high for IMDb. So I will go a little bit higher, and I'll say, who liked it more, critics or audience, or who hated it less?
I should say this, by the way. There's only 13 official critics that reviewed this. Most people don't know it exists outside of this podcast.
All right, critics.
50 people rated it. 50 for our general public.
Critics,
small sample.
Critics 21%, and audience 11%.
Okay, Rich.
I mean, it's got to be like 10% critics, and there's some masochists out there, so probably I guess like 20% audience.
So 13 critics reviewed it. It's at 23%. So I think that means like 3 of the critics thought it was fine. Is my math right?
Give it a thumbs up.
I guess.
I'm gonna go read these critic reviews. Gonna see how much money they got laundered as well.
Okay, so here's one. This is what Rich always talks about, how a thumb up, thumb down is not a great system, because this is a thumb up. This is a tomato, right? It's not a Rotten Tomato. Mm-hmm. It isn't good, exactly, and it's notably cheap looking, but I still want a smile on my face for large parts of the movie. 3 out of 5. Like, that's not a rousing endorsement, but that's a ripe tomato. There's some bad Money Plane could have been a fun disaster of a film, but Copeland's obvious boredom sucks all the air out of the cockpit. Yeah, it's pretty harsh stuff here. It's so bad.
And I don't even want to be mean to like the people in this movie. It's just God, dude.
No, they knew what this movie was.
Yeah.
Everyone that was in this movie, other than Edge, was in it for the pay. Other than like for the big
paycheck.
games,
But
they were there for
Richards was in
paychecks.
for one scene, basically 1.5 scenes, essentially. Yeah, I don't know what kind of work she's getting these days. Like, obviously, she had Wild Things back in the day, those kind of movies. But
does
Starship
any
Troopers,
movie have a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes?
So, producer Steve just dropped in chat. Master of Disguise says a 1%. I think that was Dana Carvey when he dressed it up as like a turtle amongst different things. If I'm not mistaken. It's hard to get below one, even if you try. It's hard to get below a 1%. Like a 1%. It's about as low as it goes. The audience, by the way, did everybody officially guess? I think so, right? Everybody guessed.
Yeah.
34% from the audience from 50 people. So.
That means 1 out of 3 people like this movie.
Yeah, but 1 out of 3 people.
4 of us on this show
is a Lawrence brother that filled this out. I think the Lawrence family. Well, we have to close strong, right, Rich? We're going to close strong. You have a movie for us next week, and expectations are high, at least according to IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Well, you know what? You haven't officially said what movie it is.
Well, I mean, I was actually going to give you guys a shot because the Holdovers came out, but Daigle already watched it and texted me about it. So
I forgot to tell Dean. I watched the Holdovers this weekend. It's really good.
It's on Peacock, and I'm looking forward to watching it. Yeah, I saw it.
I was going to have actually give you guys the choice, but I feel like everything is just trying to give us a million chances to make you guys watch Paddington 2. So I think we have to do it.
Complete the circle.
And we've never seen Paddington 1, but again, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. You can just go in. We're going to go in cold. Paddington 2 it fine. Is. Anything else?
I think it's the highest reviewed movie, I think, in existence, right? Like, or
yeah, I don't think they're doing a lot of world building in the Paddington movies that you have to go back and read books like it's Lord of the Rings or something.
It's not like the Marvel universe. You don't have to know everything and every different. Who's that guy? Yeah. Well, if you saw this movie, so it's the inverse of Master of Disguise, right? We already know it's one of the highest rated movies of all time. I'm not sure exactly what it is Rotten Tomatoes, what it is IMDb, but we've seen that's like popping up in like top 10 stuff. Everybody likes Paddington 2, at least to some degree.
We'll see if you do. We'll see if you do, Dean. You can crack your steel heart.
Is this going to make you cry? Is that what it's supposed to do, Paddington 2? I don't know. It makes you cry? Is that, or do we know this? Is it common knowledge?
I cried at the Holdovers, and it's not even really a cry movie. So I guarantee you, I'm gonna bawl during Paddington 2.
Okay,
I'm soft.
You know what the formula for these like kids movies are, Dean? It's they go through the heartbreaking thing, and then at the end of the movie, you get your homeward bound moment and the credits roll.
Have you seen this as well, Rob, or you haven't seen it?
No, but I can already tell you how it's gonna
go. Yeah, we kind of know how this stuff goes. All right, let's step aside and get out of here. We've been on for 2 hours. Do appreciate y'all hanging out. Hit that like button as well. Do subscribe. Watch Paddington 2 with us. Let's tell the people where they can find us. John, you go first on the old interwebs.
On the interwebs. At this point, but I guess Twitter, NotJDaigle. Still trying to play video games right now until the next spot I announce, but instead I'm doing yard work, so you can find me there.
You got Zelda as well, right? I saw you. You got a brand new Zelda game.
The great Jake Seeley at The Athletic literally shipped me a copy of Tears of the Kingdom, so that'll be opened this weekend.
Bang bang.
Nice. Rob, tell the people where they can find you.
Well,
different podcasts.
We've already had enough of the Spike Week stuff, so you can catch me over at Hometown Ghost Stories, where we just covered Toronto yesterday. But what I'm really excited about is what we're dropping on Friday. One of our side content episodes, we're talking about the New England vampire panic of the 1700s and 1800s, which is actually super wild. People in New England, actually all across Europe as well, literally thought vampires were rising out of their graves. And for 150 years, and what they did to combat it was wild.
All right, that's I'm interested. That sounds like something I would listen to. Rich, go for it. What do you got?
Sharp Football Analysis. Still writing up all these games in detail over there, so you can check that stuff out with all the other playoff content we have going on. And there's one more Pick Six show for the season. You can find me with my guys, Daigle and Dean, and now Rob, next Wednesday.
Did you say not Rob or now Rob?
Rob. Oh, I thought I got fired.
No, and now Rob. will be an awkward time to do it.
I
at the
can't-
end of the podcast.
I hope the games are good this weekend. That's all I care about. Give us some good content.
I can't believe we made it 2 hours for only 6 games to talk about. That's insane.
You guys were trying not to watch.
The over is a lock every single week. You really can't believe it.
You guys were trying not to talk about money playing. That's what it was. We were like, who's the eighth?
Come on.
Who's the 8th string receiver on Dallas? Let's talk him up. So I don't got to talk about this bullshit movie.
Rich, do you still have like a 48 hours? You still have money playing at your disposal if we convince you to go back to it and revisit?
You didn't give me a sell. You didn't really. You didn't give me any reason to go.
The 0.4, the 0.8, and the F didn't sell you on it.
F plus, but yeah. Oh, so bad. All right, let's get out of here. For Rob, for producer Steve, for John, for Rich, for Denise Richards, for Kelsey Grammer, for Darius Rumble the third, Darius the Rumble Grouch the third, and last but not least for Philip Superna. I was Dean. Go win some money on Super Wildcard Weekend. Come back next week for the last episode of the season. We're out of here. Holler.